It's kind of like advertising at a local school function. They'll tell you, oh, you get some business out of this. You're just giving money to these kids, and I'm happy with that, but you're not going to get nothing out of it sell-wise. I've yet to sell a hunt over a sponsor.
So that'll go wherever you want it to go. Keep it close, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, bring that right up to your mouth. And like I said, just get angry with it.
Keep it on your face.
Here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom! And welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by Shin Gear. Hope everybody stayed dry and had a good time at Shin Fest this weekend. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world famous Andy Shaver.
It looked like a good time. It looked like it was wet.
It was really wet. It looked like.
Picked the right year not to be there, but I hope everybody had a good time. Have you heard what film won?
No, I have not.
I need to figure that out.
We'll get one of the boys from Shin on next week, and we'll talk about all that. Okay, with us today in studio, probably one of 3 great storytellers that I know. I'm not going to mention the other 2, but you definitely would be in the top 3 of storytellers. The Prince of Poachers himself, in studio, Mr. Charles Beaty. Charles, how you doing, sir?
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Now, you haven't finished book 2, and you promised me when we had you on again, you was going to have book 2 ready, and we've been waiting for about 3 years now.
Take it up with God.
Okay. Well, I talk to God a lot, and we haven't mentioned your book on when we talk. We talk
That's
about a
why
lot of
it's
things.
not out yet, Jeff.
So I need to talk to God about your book
Be
then.
specific with your prayer.
Be specific.
I am, and I'm selfish, and I've got just a little bit of stuff. You know, I'm a godly person. I believe in God, and I'm kind of nervous about that because I've done some things I'm kind of worried about.
Hadn't we all?
And but I don't ask for a lot of things in prayer because I don't want to. And my preacher gets on to me. I don't want to waste my prayers on little things in my life. I'm not talking about someone else's life. I pray for everybody else all the time, but in my personal life, I wait till I really need him to ask for something. And my preacher always tells me you shouldn't do that. Well, that's the way I do things. I just can't. I got a pretty good life, so I thank him usually I thank more than I ever ask. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I know how you feel. I don't have as much faith in my prayer about myself. I believe for other people more, you know. I'm not being selfish when I'm asking for someone else.
No, same with me too.
Yeah.
So if I don't mind, I'm praying with you. I went to school with a girl. Her husband is a fireman, Jennifer Autry. I'm going to say her name. She's one of the nicest people I've ever known in my entire life. Went to high school with her, and as sweet a person. And she said one time, she goes, when I tell someone I'm praying for them, she goes, I do pray for them. She goes, I don't just say that in passing. And there's a lot of people, I'll pray for you, that they're not going to pray for you at all. And I say that and always forget, so I just ask God every night to pray for all the people that I told that I would pray for because I'm bad at
You got to be specific. Well, you're not being specific enough. Prayer doesn't work if you're not specific.
That's right.
I asked to win the lottery. I didn't win.
Yeah, you did. Could you imagine you win the lottery and it ruined your life? Like maybe he was keeping you from going down a road that you didn't need to go down with all that money.
Unanswered prayers.
It's God's greatest gift.
That's it.
I don't know about that. I've never prayed to win the lottery. I've never prayed at a casino to hit a job. I'm not going to waste one of my prayers on that. But boy, you win a $700 million cash lottery. Whew, you can sure help a lot of people.
Life just got infinitely more complicated for you.
So you would turn it down, is what you're saying?
No, I'm just saying that it's easy to say that, but life just got a lot more complicated.
That what I would help other people. I would
Life
help
just
other
got
people.
a lot more complicated for you.
The money. Money corrupts.
Yeah.
I mean, with much riches comes great temptation.
Yes.
700. Could you imagine though? Seriously, that's $100 million is money, or $10 million is life altering where you don't have to do nothing.
Right.
And the person that's just got more than $10 million is like bullshit. Now, if you get $10 million, you're going to have $500,000 to $1 million a year in residual income. That's pretty good life right there.
Yeah.
So, Charles, tell us a story we haven't heard.
I want to hear the UFO story. We were talking about that before we started rolling.
What now?
The UFO story.
Well, I have seen one. It's a true story. All my stories are true. You ought to figure that out by now. But one day and one evening, it was just dark. Just got dark Friday evening. We were going to go, me and my boss at the time, was Tom Hartzell at the Hartzell Ranch in Bosque County. We were going over to the Big Cup in Hyco to eat a steak. We've been working hunters already, settled them into the cabin, and took off without them. We're going to go eat snake, you know. Man, we're coming out of Walnut Springs on the second hilltop, I believe, looking towards Iredale and Hyco to the west, towards Stephenville. And I saw what I thought was about 5 sets of about 5 helicopters traveling together. There were lights shining from them like headlights on a vehicle, but there was pulsation. They were going dot, 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 dot. It was weird. And it caught my attention real quick. There was 5 groups of them, looked like they were half a mile apart. And Tom said, "You see that?" And I said, "Yes." And we're just spellstruck with it. And I watched it come to a stop. And when it come to a stop, it wasn't stopped about 15 seconds. And it began to move backwards. And all those lights spun in a counterclockwise circle. And when they did, it took off from the direction it had come in. And it hit Mach speed just like that. Gone. And we looked at each other and we said, "Don't tell anyone what we just saw." And he said, "That's right. We don't want to tell anybody. Let's wait and see what happens."
Because I think you're crazy.
The next morning, it was all over the news. It looked 3 miles in diameter. It covered the entire city of Stephenville. That's how big it was. And it moved as if it was just a feather. When it took off in reverse and shot out of there, I couldn't believe how quickly it hit Mach speed. Just disappeared. And all over Stephenville, they were saying the same thing. It was an enormous mother ship of some sort. They've been seen there before. I don't know what to think about it. You know, the secret things belong to God. But I know it has something to do with angelic powers, supernatural powers. The only thing that could, equip a ship that large to move that quick.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So you mentioned Hyco. You ever get the pie at the Big Coffee Cup?
Oh yeah, you don't go there without eating some pie.
So we're talking aliens, and we're going to pie now. You're not even the fat guy in the room.
Pie in the sky.
That's the best. That's the best pie in Texas.
Maybe that's what they were there for. They'd heard about that world famous coffee cup pie, and they came to get some.
The chocolate's supposed to be their big
They get
deal.
coconut's good there too. All their pie's good, but yeah, the chocolate meringue's about that thick on it, and
Blueberry banana.
I never had that.
Oh, that's one of their best.
What is it?
Blueberry banana.
That sounds good because I like blueberries and banana.
So
I don't like banana cream though.
Yeah.
So do you think Billy the Kid is in Hyco, or do you think he's in Fort Stockton?
Well, since you brought that up, my oldest son was murdered when he was almost 19. And he's buried catty corner to the grave of Brushy Bill Roberts there in Hamilton. It's where his mother's family was from, in Hamilton. And you can see it anytime you're there, right from the roadway, and walk to it. And his grave's easy to spot. Billy the Kid's got, decorative stuff all over the archway on it. And catty corner to it is James Robert Beaty, my son, my first son. And he was fixing to be 19 in 2 days when he was shot in the back by a bunch of, gangbangers, drive-by shooting.
Son of a bitch.
And,
It was a drive-by?
Yeah, and God supernaturally graced me through that. I've experienced what they call knowing him as the comforter. And, I just wanted to be outside alone for a minute when my dad found me and told me, and I stepped outside, and I heard God say, "You're going to sit this one out. You've been through enough already." I mean, I'd already lost my second son in the divorce. Here I was losing the oldest permanently. And I didn't grieve about it at all. I went through the funeral, graced and strengthened, and 16 years later, I was paying for a title transfer, writing a check for the title transfer fee. And I asked the lady, "What's today's date?" She said 4/23. And I said, "My God, James Robert would be 35 years old today." Then it hit me. And I grieved for 24 hours plus, just sick at my stomach, just agonized over it. But then I was over it.
Yeah.
It brought healing to go ahead and grieve. I miss him. I wished he was here to really enjoy some hunting. He got to see me shoot a buck.
He did?
And part 2, opening chapter, panhandling roadkill. We're up in the panhandle at Quail, Wellington, north of Wellington, 30 miles, back to the west about 15 miles, a little town called Quail.
I've tornado chased right through there.
All right. I was on a legal hunting place for 1,500 acres.
Legal hunting place.
but Joe McQuaid was not there, the stepfather of the taxidermist girl I knew up in Amarillo. So when he wasn't there, he said, go ahead and go hunt. Go see Gano and get some more watermelons out of his patch over at Wellington and all in the middle of the day, and I'll say hi to him. So me and my boy left, and we took the back road, dirt road, cut across to go to Wellington. And we're topping a hill, and this buck standing right in the middle of the road, 8-point, pretty good deer, 130 class buck. I just punched it. He ran down in that ditch, jumped the fence, went down in a steep ravine, and was running up the top of the hill as I'm skidding to a stop. And I had the 06 with me, pump 30-06, model 760, I believe. And I threw up on him, and I let him go on up and top out. When he topped out and leveled off, hit him right in the, I missed the flagstick 1 inch low and right. And buckled him, cratered him, and he tried to get back up. Of course, I pumped in another shell and going to knock him on down. I knew I'd hit him up the rear and broke his hip. And he dropped out from under the shot. You ever had a shot go off as the deer's still there in the crosshair, but he turns and moves or falls, and you knew immediately you missed him? Well, I did. I knew he fell out from under the second shot. So I pumped in another shell, and he stood back up and started trying to go, and I shot him right through the shoulders and dropped him. James Robert was screaming. He goes, yes, yes, Dad, yes. I said, you didn't know your old man could shoot like that, did you? About a 100-yard shot. And I ran down there and ran up the top of that hill, grabbed him, guts and all whole, drug him back down through that ditch, through the fence. I almost threw up when I was coming uphill the last 40 yards up that ravine. And opened the trunk, threw him in the trunk, wadded him up in there in that little car I had and took off and went over and saw Gano. And actually I turned around, went back to the ranch and gutted him and all, and left the deer on the ranch and tagged him, and I'll cover him with a tag. And went and saw Gano and got some more melons and stuff out of his garden over there. But, we took him home, and I had him tied on the top of the car, and a cold front hit. I mean, ice and all right around Christmas. Well, that deer froze solid. I couldn't skin him. I couldn't, go ahead and butcher him. So I just kept him tied over the car. And James Robert was in school, staying with me for 5 months. He was in school there in Arlington. And so I would go drop him off in the mornings and pick him up. And at first, he was real proud of that buck, And at the end of by the third morning going to school, he goes, when he come back, come to pick him up, he goes, Dad, can we take the buck down off the car now? The whole school was talking about he was going to Carter Junior High there. But
So, before we get into this, I got a real ass chewing this weekend over you being on here as a guest again.
I heard about it.
And I told the guy, I was very polite about it. I get a lot of hate mail anyways, but I don't condone poaching. And I'm going to speak for Andy because Andy's dicking around doing something right now with the camera. Andy doesn't condone any kind of poaching. And everything you did, I don't condone. And I've told you that before. That don't mean we're not friends. It means I don't condone it. But you got a story to tell. What you did then, you can't get by with today. I don't think. I'm sure there's some people still out poaching, but I don't know how the hell they're getting by with it with all the game cameras and drones and everything. So I wanted to give that before we get into this. I want you to tell your stories, and I love your stories. But I don't condone any poaching, and neither does Andy. I run a legit hunting operation, and we don't do any of that stuff. So I've said my floor on that. So now back to you, Charles. So what did you do with this deer? You got it. You weren't worried at all about someone coming over the road? I'd be scared to death.
That's part of the fun. When you're breaking the law like that, it is the ultimate rush hunting. Hunting's one thing. Add something to that just as bigger. It's double the fun. Like I said, hunting in the refuge of the King Ranch, that was one thing. Then hunting with George, being with him was just, historical. The guy was a legend. That George Moore was the outlaw legend of Deep South Texas. Grew up in Kingsville. He was it. You can ask anybody down there who Buddy Moore was. They knew him in a heartbeat. But, the added rush to the thrill.
You told me y'all had a banquet at the end of the year to find out who was the better poacher?
The Bishop Outlaws would hold a little get-together. I think we had a $30 per man pot. And whoever killed the biggest buck won that cash pot. That's about 35 men in that group.
So you just won $1,000.
Yeah.
In 1980, that was a lot of money.
Yeah.
So what did how did you judge it? Did you have to bring the horns in?
Total measurement.
So you had to bring them in.
No penalty. Yeah, you had to show up at the fresh rack
with no tags on none of these deer.
Outlaw honor,
God Almighty.
Yeah, well, the tag stays with the meat.
Right, yes, it does. A lot of people do not realize that.
About the end of January is when we'd have that get together and pay off the pot winner.
Do you think the game wardens are ever privy or knowing about y'all doing all this?
They didn't have a clue about the Bishop Outlaws. Those were the generation following the parents that did it that did not tell anyone because it would affect their work. You know, King Ranch had that kind of influence. Your affiliation with your job could be impacted by King Ranch. If you got in a what we call blackball situation, they could black your name with your employer. And unless you were independent of that, everybody had to keep their mouth shut to keep their job. Politics.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know anybody else that ever got caught doing on the ranch?
So many people. I'm gonna have to write a fourth book. So many people have come forward to me. I mean, I would be a kingpin of an informant now. They've all confessed their poaching to me.
Well,
I mean,
the jurisdiction's out on all that.
I know, but I'm gonna have to write a book about them. The stories, they're awesome stories. All those guys told me their stories. And you know me, I got a photostatic memory.
Tell me one of them.
Well,
you can change the name.
Yeah, this is a good one. I mean, it doesn't matter. I don't have a name on this one. This old man called me, and he was friends with T.O. Clayburg. He was friends with Robert East. He was invited to hunt legal on the King Ranch on Robert East Bow. He's over there on an invite hunt going in the gate to the Robert East, and they see these bicycle tracks, 10-speed bike tracks. Well, they call in the security and put them on them. They go on and go hunting. And this was way back when I was probably still in high school. And so they catch them. They come back to their bicycles after dark, and they've got 2 monster bucks, the heads, and they catch them. They're 2 Fort Worth cops. Oh. I mean, talk about shocking me. That was the one that shocked me. That was before I even probably fell in love with deer hunting. But that just goes to show you, when you think about the 2 cops that went with me in 1990, that was really, it was 89, I believe. That's no new news, to them down there. They'd already caught cops from Fort Worth back then. I don't remember the year he said, but he sent me pictures of 3 or 4 monster bucks he killed on King Ranch and Robert East, for permission, legal. But he was a heck of a nice old gentleman, but he may be passed away now. That's been about 6 years ago when my book first come out. He called me and told me that story. And then I've heard outlaws talk about places near Bishop King Ranch where they went in and shot 186, 187 bucks, and got away with it. But what was that one? Butch Thompson drove right by the fence where the guy was with the deer's head. He'd been watching that deer. He knew that deer was getting near the fence and some outlaw might get him. So he was patrolling. He'd already went in there at about midday, killed the deer after having seen him 3 or 4 times. And he was coming out with him. And he said, I was down in the high grass right there. And his truck went right between me and the fence. It was Butch Thompson, chief of security then. Well, McDoodle was chief, but Butch was top man on the vehicles.
And I can verify your stories on being true because we have a mutual friend that lived in Arlington who's a celebrity, and he told me, we were talking about you one time, and he said, I've known Charlie a long time, and he goes, that some bitch is crazy, but he goes, his stories are true. And you know what I'm talking about, yeah. I think.
Jim Kearns.
Well, I wasn't going to say his name, but yes. But yeah, Jim told me. He said, Charlie's stories are legit.
Yeah, I used to burn one with him. He'd come to the taxidermy. You want to go burn one? I said, yeah. He always had some badass weed. I mean, for medicinal purposes, of course. He'd throw his arm out and doctor do a little surgery on him, little cortisone shots, and give him a script, some weed. He was probably one of the earliest script marijuana users in Arlington. Well, he had a race car, too. And this race car was a hot rod, and he kept it that way. That was his toy, He come to the end of the driveway at Alpine Gun Range there where he picked me up. He looked over at me, put a big old stogie in his mouth, fired it up, took a big hit, and handed it to me. And he goes, you ready? And I said, yep. He goes, ooh, double clutched it, wound out first gear, ooh, bang, tinkle, 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 dropped the drive shaft. Oh, I mean, he sheared the Slayer cylinder right off the back of the drive shaft, tinkle, 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 and we come to a stop. He just grabbed the joint, took another hit, and he goes, that's twice I've done that in the last 2 weeks. That's as far as we made it. We walked back up there smoking that joint in the middle of the gun range. Kearney was crazy. Talking about crazy, like I said before, likewise. He was as crazy as anybody.
He told me, he said, everything he tells you is the truth.
He just wouldn't go hunting with me. I'd have loved it if he went with me.
He liked to hunt.
Yeah.
So tell me about your first encounter with the nail guy.
Well, I have some favorites about it. I've had encounters. I shot a couple off. I shot 4 off the road one morning. They were 25-06. I didn't know you can't shoulder shoot them with it. So I'm shoulder shooting them, and they're just run. I shot one in the third one. I shot him in the throat, and blood squirting out both sides as he ran out of sight. I didn't understand all that. I thought, man, these guys are immortal. And the fourth one, I dropped him with a neck shot, but he was able to get up and stammer. And I mean, my buddy Pat Lane that I brought up here that one time, he was coming down South 77 South. I'm out of the vehicle shooting over the hood. I had come back northbound and was shooting over the hood. Him and old Fred Hornsby, his uncle, got on me without me seeing them coming. They'd kind of come around a bend or two there, and I was focusing on trying to get another shot off. And the bull was standing back up, stammering, staggering, barely getting along. I'm trying to put one in his earbud then. And I looked up and I go, shit. And then I said, wait a minute, that's Pat. And I said, get on out of my way. I'm trying to finish this bull. And they pulled on past me, and I shot him right under the ear and just dropped him. And so that was about a 70-yard off the fence shot. I go back and tell my boss, he told me don't go after any of those bulls. They're going to find all 4 of them by dark. It was in the morning. And he said, just leave them, you can get another one. They need the exercise anyway. But on foot in the Kennedy, hunting from the Riskin, one of my favorite stories was I was after one to mount still. Hadn't got one and got him out to mount. And this bull is coming up this fence. And I'm on the other side of that fence. There's a lane down each side where animals travel. The brush is kind of beat back, and every now and then brush against the fence. And that old straight gauge, 9-gauge wire, straight wire. It's not barbed wire, not hog fence like King Ranch. It's just straight round wire through all the posts. And I hear it snare. So he come out of the thicket I was on the same side with, and he went to the other side, and he starts walking by me, below me. I'm up in a dead snag about probably 9-10 feet off the ground. And I see him coming, and he's coming down behind me. And finally, I was trying to look at his horns and make sure he's big enough to kill him. And I was slowly turning around. He hadn't seen me yet. And then at the last second, I leaned out off that tree to judge his rack, and I saw a little brindle color, and I went, well, that's a sign of youth. It's not really probably a trophy mountain bull. And when I leaned forward, I heard my shirt go on the trunk, and he looked up at me. He's looking at me from you to me, Andy. And he looked at me, and his eyes went crazy, wild, stretched. And he turned around, and it was wet, and on that hilltop, there's kind of a clay base under the sand. And he got that clay flying, trying to turn around, and he was just peeling out, and chunks of that clay were flying up in the air, almost hitting me. And I mean, it scared the shit out of him. He hit that wall of brush beside him, and you could just hear him like a bulldozer just... I didn't really want to kill him anyway, but that was as close as you can get and closest I've ever been to a blue bull. He wasn't a monster, but he was a pretty good bull, but he didn't see me until he was on. I could have spit on him easy, But
What do they weigh? What do those things weigh?
Usually around 9 they top in, but the old bulls can break 1,000. I think some of them can weigh 1,100 pounds like bull elk.
They're a good eating animal too.
If you kill them in September, October, November, no later than November 1st.
Why is that?
They start rutting.
And then
once they rut, burn their fat from tallow to runny fat, man, they get tough.
Really?
Nobody understands. Tom East knew how strong they were. He called them horse killers. They'd kill a horse. Late summer, be a small water hole. They'd claim that. That's their territory. And used to, they had horses free range. That's why one reason they don't have free range horses in the Kennedy. Too many nilgai. And Tom called them horse killers because he'd seen them kill them. He'd pull his 30-30 out of a saddle and shoot them and leave them laying there. He did not like them. That's the one animal he wanted to kill every one of them he saw. When he was in a helicopter, I bet he shot a bunch of them.
So where are you supposed to shoot them? Because you said you'd
high neck.
High neck?
The best place is if you can get them to turn and look away from you and put it in the back of their head. Mm-hmm. Their head's so strong that I know a guy that shot one in the fire lane point blank right off the fence, and he shot him with a 200 grain 30-06 right in the back of the head, dead center between both ears. He looked away from him and he dropped him. And he got inside there and looked, and the bullet never even came out the front of the skull. That 200 grain bullet just exploded in his brain cavity after going through that hard marble back. It captured that 30-06. I would have thought 200 grains would have blown through.
So the behind the shoulder is not the way to go on them.
They shoot them with 338s now in the shoulder, and right. High shoulders where to break them down. You shoot them in the withers, right through the spine,
Right.
top of the shoulders. That's why they call it the withers. They just wither when you shoot them there.
Will they get after you like a water buffalo?
I had never seen one become aggressive. When they look at you, they're looking at the image of God. And there's something about all wildlife that when they see a man, they know he's superior to them. And, I mean, like hogs, I've come up on a pack of pigs sneaking up trying to get close enough to put an arrow in one. And one of them saw me, snorted, looked up, saw me, and turned and ran up to the other pack of the pigs. And they go, what? And he goes, run, I just saw God. I mean, he told them on a command to leave. And then they knew what he said when he grunted, and the whole pack took off. They run when something superior comes up on them.
I wonder what the history is on the nail guy when they first showed up on the King Ranch.
What I heard was, in like the 40s and 50s, they were wanting to blend them in with beef. They were thinking they might crossbreed them and tone down the wild flavor people talk about. No, I never have understood what people mean when they say that's too wild. Wild game tastes wild. I don't know what taste they're talking about. But they thought about crossbreeding them with cattle, too. Like they did the Santa Gertrudis, developing them. It didn't work out.
Right. So when is the best month, do you think, to eat a deer? To kill a deer and then to eat it?
August, September's the best eating month.
Right. Right. Because I was gonna say, I'm sure you shot them about year round.
Oh,
so
yeah.
when's the flavor best? August and September.
Yeah. Their fat's tallow.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just like a calf fed for slaughter. They're just the fat. Once that fat starts burning and turning runny, October they'll put on a bunch of fat, but it don't have time to taller very quick if they've been poor. Now, if they've been fat all year, that'll just add to the taller. And their oodles of fat in their gut cavity will be plentiful. But, man, once they start rutting and burning that fat and it turns runny and orange, it ain't no count. The meat's got a little twang to it.
Right.
But you cut all that off and they taste fine. But, they're tougher.
So I haven't shot many deer, and I definitely haven't cleaned many. But so you can tell, like, once you start skinning it, like the amount of fat that it'll have on it. Like whenever it's late rut, they've been running does and everything. There's just no fat on them at all.
Another thing's injury. Once the rut starts, they get in fights, and you'll skin them back, and the whole back strap will be just barely laying in the saddle. It's already ripped loose. They get in a big, strong fight with another big buck, and they just tear a whole back strap loose.
Yeah.
And there's yellow bruising all in there. Infections start setting in. They get nasty quick in the rut.
Yeah.
Bigger the buck, the more fighting they do.
Yeah, that's true too. So all of your times on the King and the Kenedy, what's the one deer that got away from you that you wish you had another shot at?
I've told you, that red Nunley buck stands alone. Now, I know I saw a deer that was in the high 220s there. 30 yards or less. I just gawked. It happened so quick. We just got in there. We ran across a 500-yard clearing and got down in the heavy brush, and there was a wash down in there and dry. It was just flood creek, flood wash. I called it a gulch. And we're on a sandy bottom down in there, that red dirt, walking quiet. And we got close to those deer. There was an 8-point jump, hit the bottom, stuck a landing on the other cliff, and looked back. And when he looked back, I looked back, saw a doe. This kid beside me just froze and started looking at that 8-point. And all of a sudden, I saw the tree limbs start moving behind that doe. Lately, I've remembered seeing a double set of ears. His ears were bigger, of course, and he was behind her, right in line with her head. I remember now seeing 2 outlines of ears. I didn't know what it meant at first. It didn't really catch my attention because them limbs started moving. And when them limbs started moving, I was looking at that. And then that big rack turned and came out down below those limbs. Mm-hmm. He cleared, I saw the whole rack sideways over her back, clear as a bell. And I'm just shocked. I just gawked. He stopped 4 or 5 steps later, ducked, go under a big overhanging mesquite limb, hobbled a few steps, stopped at another one, ducked, went under it, and one leap and gone. And I went, did you see that buck? And that kid with me goes, I saw that 8-point. I go, no, I just saw a monster run off behind the doe. It was gone. Just, it happened so quick. Like I say, we just got in there. I was my 2nd year down there hunting. I hadn't got pro. I hadn't got on my game yet. Mm-hmm. But that,
you think he was 200 plus?
No doubt, way high 220s. He had 12 or more typical points. It was just a row, and then he had, I'll never forget those big old long 6-inch forks on the back 6 uprights. That's what I focused on when I was looking at the rack gawking. I was going to look at all the forks. I could see them clear 30 yards. I bet he wasn't 30 full steps.
If you score a deer and you say it's 220, there ain't no doubt in my mind it's 218 to 224. You've done it long
I
enough.
wouldn't be surprised if that deer broke 230. He was huge, massive horns. I can send you a picture from the Big Rack book. It's in the
But now, do you
220.
think if you would have been on your game, like you said, that was your second year, and you hadn't
Anybody on their game would have shot that deer?
you would have?
Sure.
Really?
Yeah, if I'd have pulled my gun off and threw it up, I could have killed him. Maybe not on the first stop, but I could have shot him by the second. I'd have been on him, and when he stopped, pull the trigger.
So you just didn't know what you were looking
I had
at.
2 stalls to pull the trigger on. I had my head up my ass. I was just gawking. I'd never seen a deer that big, that close
Right.
at all. I'd seen a King Ranch deer, that King Ranch special buck. I'd seen him out there wide, but close, it's a whole different story close. When you see one close, you get full impact.
Yeah,
It's a
especially at
different
30
story.
steps.
I mean, it does more too. It'll grab you harder.
Yeah, I rolled back to the nail guy. I checked 1924. Caesar
That's when they first brought them.
Caesar Kleberg is the first one that brought him in there from India.
Yeah.
And the population, there's about 40,000 of them, they think,
Right now.
in Kleberg and Kennedy County. I think that's it. Is it King and Kennedy? Is it Kleberg and Kennedy County?
Kleberg and Kennedy County.
Those, those counties, I think there's 30 to 40,000 of the nail guy in there.
When I first moved there, they just had a dial from that 13-day freeze. It killed all the palm trees down at Brownsville.
Right.
Okay. Estimated 14,000 nilgai died in that freeze.
That would have been in 83 or 84.
And 3-4 years ago, when me and my son went on a airboat duck hunt at Port Mansfield, there's a game refuge there at Port Isabel. Okay. The powers that be decided that they were too populated in there, and they helicopter harvested 4,000 nilgai out of that refuge, and were taking them out there in dump trucks. They were saying the meat was being donated, but the guy that told me about it, he goes, I don't think they donated all that meat and handled it, be spoiled, not gutted, even haul them out there in dump trucks like that.
Was that on the Atasoka or whatever, how they say
I don't
that?
remember the name of that refuge, but
I think it's Atasoka Refuge.
but there's
I think.
ocelots run across the road there all the time.
There's what?
Ocelots. There's a ton of them in that refuge.
The cats?
Yes,
I mean, damn, I didn't know that.
they're all over the Kennedy.
Don't
I've
they have
seen them.
oryx down there too?
I've never seen an oryx.
I think they're starting to see some oryx now.
I heard the Kennedy had kudu in their high fence trap for the Cerritos safaris.
What was it the guy shot Wade and them shot over? Somebody shot at Albany. Wade had it. The Bam Bam or the Boom Boom or some weird. They shot one of these weird antelope deals at Albany the other day, and it had white marks on the brown. Bongo is what it is. Anyways, that's in. Wade was telling me about it, and I said something to him. He goes, "Yeah, with them fires down in South Texas, or that flooding in South Texas, it's dispersed a lot of them animals." I thought I hadn't thought about that, but that's going to move a lot of those animals around.
Yeah, they get through the floodgates during those floods.
But that bongo was a weird animal.
Was it a deer?
No, it's it's like an antelope, like a nail guy. It's a big animal.
Looks more like a cow, like a Watusi and all, but smaller horns. A gower kind of look like they got.
That's it right there.
Yeah.
I can see that hide being on some rich lady's floor.
See, that is my favorite game animal, second to the zebra diker. Looks just like them. I've got it in my taxidermy album. I mounted one. I mounted a zebra diker for old Jim Brock in Dallas years ago, and that's the most beautiful. It's a cousin to that, but zebra diker ain't but that long, and a beautiful animal. Beautiful.
We had a guy on the other day that was he hunts in Mexico, and he was talking about a deer that he's going to hunt in the Yucatan Peninsula.
Brocket deer.
So much weighs 3 pounds.
Yeah.
I'd never seen one before. Size of a jackrabbit.
Yeah, Dick.
I know what those. Yeah.
The African version of that small of a deer.
Are the Dick Dicks bigger than that
there's
though?
There's gray brown, red brown, and regular brocket deer. I mounted the world record for Jesus Urin, a head government official down there. He was in charge of all the government spending in all of Mexico. I've seen his trophy room.
I bet it's amazing.
Unbelievable. There wasn't hundreds of mounts in there. There were thousands. He was one of the richest men in Mexico, of course, handling all the money. And he hunted all over.
You got him a little bit of it too. He not just handled it; he kept some.
He hunted the whole world over. But yeah, he killed the world record brocket deer.
What's the biggest animal you ever mounted?
I've done 9 brown bears. I think they're probably the largest animals. I mounted a horse for the Fritz Museum up at Fritz in the Panhandle.
You did a horse?
Yeah.
How the hell that's got to be hard as hell to do.
Just a Shetland pony.
But still got to be hard to do.
He was the mascot at the Fritch, the town of Fritch, where the museum is, and they would let him lead the parade every year. Well, he KO'd at about 28 years of age, and they had me mount him. I mounted him up there at that taxidermy shop in Amarillo.
But how do you, I mean, that's, well, the brown bear, that's got to be a chore just getting the cape on him.
Well, you need a helper. You need some muscle. After this cancer, I'll never be able to do big animals by myself. I'll need, a man or two to help me handle the weight. I'm not near as strong as I used to be.
It's just amazing them they mount these like elephants and stuff you see mounted. I'm like, God almighty, the damn form's got to weigh thousands of pounds.
That polyurethane foam, though, cuts a lot of the weight out. The old hollow paper laminated forms, they can get heavy on big mounts, but we don't use them as much anymore.
But the hide of an elephant or a buffalo even, or a full elk or something, that's a heavy-ass hide.
Yeah, I've done a lot of elk and, red stag too, but, I was mounting a red stag when I first come down with this cancer a couple of years in. I had blood running out all my elbows and stuff, and I couldn't hardly handle him by myself. I did a moose and that red stag at the same time, and I said, there's nothing left of me. And God said, now I can use you. And I said, why didn't we have this conversation sooner?
So now you're taking methylene blue.
Yeah, for a month.
For a month now? Had you heard about methylene blue before this? Or?
I've been hearing about it for 6, 7, 8 months and then wanted to try it, but I've been heavy on the fenbendazole to try to push out the rest of the cancer and the tissue that it created. That methylene blue has come to a whole nother level. It's knocking loose stuff that wasn't even there.
Really?
It's causing it to gather and surface and leave. It's running the skin cancer out of business.
So do you drink it or how do you take it? You just put it in your water?
I'm only taking half what they recommend. They recommended something like 75 drops a day for a dosage. And I counted and figured out how much one draw of the squirt bottle, the little, what do you call it, eyedropper?
Yes.
I'm using one draw of that, which is about 45 drops instead of about 75. And I just drop that. It tastes like shit.
It does?
So I drop it. I used to use the black salve and the other stuff, fenbendazole I still do. And I call it sweet and heat. I put something sweet because cancer viruses love sugar.
Yes.
When I eat an ice cream cone, top of my head, solar plex used to sting immediately in seconds. It responds to tasting sugar in my blood. So I bait it. Now, I used to use baking soda with black molasses syrup. Mm-hmm. And that would trick it into eating the baking soda, which is peroxide, and kill it. Well, I knew that, so I started using sweet and heat. I'd put hot sauce in my eggs and taquitos and take the black salve with that orally. Well, on this methylene blue, I'm just dropping it in some sweet Tahitian treat, a little shot glass, down it, chase it, and wash it on down, where I don't have to endure that nasty flavor. It tastes kind of like turpentine or something,
Right.
How often are you taking it? Once a day or twice a day?
About every other day right now while I've been studying it, but when I've done it 2 days in a row, it kind of hammered me. I was like feeling the toxicity. Mm-hmm. I wasn't feeling perky. It just kind of knocked shit out of me, and I said, I don't believe I want to feel that drag ass every other day. So, I cut it back a bit. But,
don't RFK take it every day?
I don't know how he takes it. I don't know how often he takes it.
Small drops, fine every day.
Right, but a big dose like that.
Don't you take it?
No.
Did you buy some?
I did not.
How expensive is it?
$30 for that first bottle I bought.
And it lasts a month? So
far, I've been on it a month. I think it's going to last me maybe most of another.
So basically 50 cents a day.
It's cheap.
Yeah, but it tastes like shit.
A lot cheaper than fenbendazole.
But it tastes like shit.
Yeah.
What's fenbendazole?
Well, that's dog wormer.
Okay.
Livestock wormer. And then the ivermectin, I just worm myself like a cow. About every week, 5 or 6 days, I squirt it down my back heavy, spray it on the places still remain on the back of my head. Listen, I've been in a bar fight 23 years. I'm knocking the piss out of this shit. I have no mercy. I actually have gotten sadistic. I hurt like hell when I put on that ivermectin. It just sets me on fire. That black salve, when I put it on a sore, it sets it on fire. It's like a lit cigarette stuck to it. And I just go, suffer, motherfucker. I want to know how you feel. I want to know that cancer's taking the beating I'm feeling. I want to know.
So the ivermectin, you can feel it because I take ivermectin once a month just as a preventative for everything. And it works. I think it works really well.
You drink it?
And I drink it. I mix it with some tea or orange juice. Sometimes I just drink. I just put the syringe in my mouth and squirt. I take about 3 cc's every month.
When I discovered it, I kept a bottle in my little side saddle compartment in the vehicle, and I'd be going down the road, and that cancer on my top of my head, when all that surfaced up there, I'd just pour me a cap full driving down the road, put a knee on the wheel, and pour me a cap full, throw it over my head, and just make sure I smeared it out pretty level real quick. Mm-hmm. And it was like white lightning. I'd be hanging my head out the window quick going, woo, just shaking my head. There's real volatile. See, it's got a high alcohol content in it. Well, pour alcohol straight on that pink cancer. Yeah. You set the whole thing on fire. I had a high school friend that died. He was putting nuts and bolts in a pan full of gas underneath the vehicle. He had a little private workshop in a mini warehouse district. And a guy comes in smoking a cigarette, throws it down on the floor to stomp it out. Well, it lit that gas pan on fire. Old Vincent Smalley just elbowed it trying to get out from under there, and it splashed it all over him. He got up and ran 50 yards down the parking lot just like a torch and fell over dead. Straight out of high school, senior graduate, and was dead the next year, burned to death.
That's horrible.
I think they ought to give the guy that lit him up a death sentence.
Yeah, that's what he done.
That's the stupidest person has ever heard of.
So, you see, I did not know you could feel the burn when you put the ivermectin on you.
If it's an open wound, brother, hang on to your hat.
Well, I'm not going to try it. I take your word for it. So it's not like when you put hydrogen peroxide on something where it just bubbles up. You can actually feel it.
You know, you put peroxide on it and it burns too. And if you try to wash it off with water, it accelerates it. H2O puts the oxygen level to it, and then it reactivates it on a higher level. If you ever get strong peroxide on your hands, like when I'm skull bleaching, animal skulls, oil is the only thing that'll save it from burning you, eating a hole in you. 39% industrial strength peroxide, heated when you're pouring it over some of them tough skulls to get them white. You get it on your hands, and you're in trouble. The first time that happened to me, I ran to the phone and called old John White in Haltom City. I said, how do I kill peroxide? He said, on my hands. He goes, oil, hang up and call me back. I put the oil on it, put it out. That'll save your ass. Peroxide, even over the counter, is tough when you hit water after you let it bite the sore. It'll get a hold of that tumor and crawl down in it. And then when you put the water to it, it just accelerates it, makes it hurt worse.
Have you heard about food-grade peroxide on cancer? Supposedly food-grade peroxide, there's a couple of guys out here that done it, and 2 of them had stage 4 cancer and both alive. This has been 5-10 years. They would take a bath in it, even.
Okay, yeah, baby. I've heard you could pour it in your bath water.
Yeah, they take a bath with it.
I've got $18,000 in Epsom salt poured down my bathtub drain in the last 12, 14 years in the septic tank now.
They say
Epsom salt's very effective, too. It saved my life when the stuff surfaced and blood poison rings formed around all those slabs of cancer. Epsom salt saved my life. It drew the infection out. And I took a bladed needle and I'd cut those black blood ring blisters all the way around those tumors, those slabs of that cancer, and then boil it out with peroxide. I'd take that Epsom salt real strong in a coffee can beside the bathtub there, dip a sponge in a Brillo pad, one of them Scotch-Brite pads. Mm-hmm. I had 39 balls all over my back, and I would scrub back there and just set it on fire with that Epsom salt. I had that stuff burning so bad one day, angels came in my room, in the bathroom, and I saw them up there. I didn't even speak to them. I was in a, survival mode, and I didn't even look up at them. But they were there just in case I needed help. I knew why they were there, and I never said a word to them.
Were you as spiritual when you were younger as you are now?
No, but I have the mantle of my dad and my papa fell on me, Jeff. My dad preached 10 years. My papa preached 54 years. I was talking to a pastor in Glenrose there, 91, I believe, fishing. And I was telling him how they pulled all that illegal criminal shit on me and stole my son, took custody of him. And he goes, you're a believer and a Christian and all. He said, but all I hear coming out of you is kind of like hatred towards these people that took your boy. I said, you got 4 kids. If they took even one of your kids from you, how would you feel? Well, the next day he came back and said, I owe you an apology. But he told me, he said, I'm getting something out of you that it seems to me, he said, is there a preacher in your family somewhere? And I said, yeah. My dad and my papa both were preachers, and he goes, "That's it." He goes, "The mantle has fell on you. I can feel it. I can feel their anointing on you." I mean, he knew it. He was spiritual, and he was a holy roller, you know. And he's Pentecostal.
Do you know Bible verses?
I know the whole book. Jeff.
See, I don't know. I couldn't tell. If you told me right now, you said, Jeff, I'll give you $1 million to quote a Bible verse, I'd be without $1 million.
Well, you need to correct that.
I read a lot, and I've read the Bible. The first part of it, I just can't read the whole Bible. I love God. I know Jesus died for my sins. I just cannot remember any of it. Now, I can quote you a book I read last night, a bunch out of it, but for some reason, I can't quote you a verse. I can tell you what it says, but I can't quote you a verse. Andy, can you quote verses in the Bible?
He wept.
What is that? Which one is that?
Oh, I don't know which one
See,
it is.
you're the same as me. And Andy's a deacon.
I'm not a deacon. How do you like to read the Bible? Do you read it start to finish, or do you jump around?
Listen, when I first got to a saving faith at 28, in my taxidermy shop for 6 years, this is all coming in part 2. I just couldn't get enough. There was like I had been, take a man who's never eaten food his whole life till he's 28. I felt like that spiritually. I was hungry, starved. My spirit man was starving. So what I'd do is I'd play Christian preaching and teaching one after another all day, every day for 6 years, just absorbing the Word of God through hearing it. Hearing, faith comes by hearing, hearing by the Word of God. You hear the Bible and it builds your faith. If you start reading the Bible a bunch, you'd be praying for things that you wouldn't have the faith to believe for otherwise. And that happened to me. But see, because I believed real big for some real big things and I didn't get them, it kind of cut me back. But I've had supernatural miracles performed for me. I've had it happen. I've seen it with my own eyes. Let me give you an example. I'm sitting in my taxidermy one day. I have put 3 of the runner boards on a life-size bighorn sheep mount. I cut the board too short. I didn't figure in the reverse angle on the last piece, and I cut that solid oak board off a full inch short, 3/4, 7/8, because of the angle of the 45. I just didn't flip it upside down to mark it, and so I was just sick. I had them C-clamped on. I hadn't glued them or screwed them yet. I had them C-clamped on, but the last piece told the tale. It was full inch short. And it just broke my heart. I was broke. I had bills to pay. I needed that $1,200 balance due on that ram that day. I needed to complete it. I think I just wrote a hot check for the $6 last board I needed. And it just broke my heart. And I was just crushed. And I sat there just beat. I said, it's beat me. I cut it off too short. And I think it touched God. He sees everything. And he saw me get broken like that. And I felt defeated. And he said, measure it again. I said, I just measured it, Lord. It's not fitting. I cut it off an inch short. He said, measure it again. And I put that board back up there, and I watched that wood, solid oak, grow 1 inch and was a perfect fit. I saw it with my own eyes. And I said, what did you do that for? And he said, just to show you that I could.
See, if everybody would have that experience, there'd be a whole lot more Christians in the world.
Yeah, well, I've got a whole lot more testimony than that.
Yeah, that's kind of like someone's like, I've never heard the big voice, and I've never heard that.
No, it's not big. It's quiet.
Well, but
Whisper.
I've never heard him speak to me. He speaks to me, but not in a voice. But if you went in your back room and you heard, "This is Jesus," there wouldn't be an empty seat in a church anywhere. Would you agree?
I can tell you why, Jeff. He said, you have not because you ask not. If you ask, he'll start speaking to you. I bought a picture of him about Christmas time 2-3 years ago. No, it's longer than that. It's been longer than that, 7-8 years ago. And I brought it home with me from a little thrift store. And I put it up right there in front of where I sit and have my coffee every morning. And I started talking to him again after years of not talking to him as badly as my faith was torn up. And he started talking back. Get you a picture of Jesus and put it on the wall where you sit and drink your coffee and start talking to him. He'll talk back to you. I mean, that's it. That's one key. But I've been knocked down by this cancer so bad that it's hard for me to be in a good enough mood to try to fellowship with God. You want to praise when it's praise time.
Yeah.
You don't want to whine about, I don't want to be a wussy and a wimp and whine how bad I've got it. I hadn't complained hardly at all about this cancer. When I do, I get mad. I'll get angry and say, you know, why ain't it over yet? Like I was jogging one morning, and I said, why won't you let me get well, heal me so I can give my testimony? And he said, Charlie, you don't fire your nukes to win the war only. You fire your nukes to end the war. I've got a testimony so powerful that once I give it, it's going to end all the debate. It's going to end all the controversy. It's going to leave no more doubt. The liberals will be kicked out of office. They won't be able to argue anymore. It's going to shut their mouths. You know, I've got an unbelievable testimony. It's supernatural. It's 2 or 3 forms of it, you know. I've got the miraculous in different forms. I've seen it. I've heard it. I've experienced it. You know,
When you've went through a lot of tragedy. I can't imagine losing a son. And then, did they ever catch who shot him?
Yeah.
Have you forgiven him?
I have. I realized immediately that woman that birthed that child, she lost her son too. He went to prison for 25 years. The sad truth is my first ex-wife was so vicious and vengeant and hateful. She's going to be at every parole hearing that boy has and make sure he stays in prison. Connie's a vindictive person. I don't think she's forgiven him any. She's had no sympathy on his mother either.
I got a book in Saturday, and I read the whole book yesterday because I didn't even start it till Saturday. I read the whole book yesterday called Screaming Skies. I think that's the name. I'm pretty sure that's the name of it. It's about 5 murders in Wichita Falls. Well, I bought the book. I saw it on Amazon because I grew up at Wichita and I remembered all these times. And they had a serial killer named Farron Waldrop. And he was a preacher. He was not a preacher at first. He became a preacher. He was very active in his church in Albany, Texas. But he had killed a girl on a blacked out drug deal in 19. And I was in high school when most all this happened. Killed this girl, and I remember this girl because she went to the same clubs I went to sometimes. So I was 19, 20 years old when she got killed. But she got killed after these other 4 girls had gotten killed, and they didn't put them together. But there was a girl missing. She was a nurse, and then another girl worked at the hospital, and then one girl just worked at a subs sandwich place there. Yeah. A place called Subs and Suds. They were all murdered by this guy, this same guy. Well, when they found this DNA, they tied them all together. But anyways, it talks about this one girl, the first girl that was killed. Her parents went to all the bond hearings and stuff, and he was going to get parole after 11 years on the first murder. Oh, yeah. But then after he got out, this guy put it together. It's a detective named John Little put it all together. And then they went back. He's in prison. They're fixed to put him to sleep where he should be. But it was but it was talking about, I got some forgiveness. The dad was a hard dad the way I think I would be if my kid got killed. But he went and actually talked to the killer, and the killer told him what had happened and why he had killed. You know, he was in a blind drug rage. He said, your daughter was a nice girl, blah, blah, blah. And the guy said when it was over, he called his ex-wife. They had been divorced by this time. And he said, I didn't forgive the guy. But he goes, I have compassion for him because his dad is dying of cancer and it's hurting this guy. And he said, I finally met a human connection with this guy. And he goes, and then the mother went, and she went and talked to him like 2 or 3 months later. And when she come back from prison, she said, I forgive him. I told him, you're forgiven for what you done to my daughter. Well, but then that's got to be a hard thing to do. But you're right. I think about that like in Frisco right now, they have that black kid killed the white kid at the track meet, stabbed him in the heart and killed him. That. Both kids died that day. Yep. Both set of parents are mourning their loss of their children. Now, one's a victim and one's not. And the one who done the stabbing deserves everything he gets. But it's still tough on them parents, too, because they lost kids that day also.
Well, on my son, I've got to go ahead and add this because this is what happened. My son had taken part in some kind of drive-by shooting. When he was staying with me those 5 months during my separation and divorce, I caught him showing a newspaper article to some of his little buddies he'd met at school. And I snatched it away from him and read it. And it talked about a drive-by shooting that took place in Austin. My son's account is in one of those albums. You can read it if you want to. And I grabbed it away from him and I saw what it said and I tore it up. He goes, hey, you didn't have a right to tear that up. And I said, James Robert, you don't need to be glorifying a drive-by shooting. You're going to end up in the same mess. And I tore it up. He was furious. I didn't understand why. When I went to my son's funeral, his little girlfriend was shot in the leg too. The bullet went through him and into her leg. And she was pregnant. I've got a grandson. He's in prison. And she said, when I saw her at the funeral, she said, "Why James, Charlie? Why James?" So when I walked up to view my son's body in the casket, I said, "Why James?" That kept ringing in my ears. Why James? And I heard the Spirit of God. He said, "He who lives by the sword shall also die by the sword." My son, I was convinced then, my son had murdered someone when he was back down around 11 or 12 in a drive-by shooting.
At 11 years old?
He was that mean and ornery as a kid. My son was in TYC for 2 years, from robbing a 7-Eleven with a pistol to get in a gang, got in the Bloods, I believe it was. And he went to TYC down there at, what's that, Marble Falls, somewhere outside Marble Falls, okay? And I was going down there and seeing him. He got out while he was in state care. He ran away, broke out when he was in the halfway house stage, you know, under minimum security. He gets in a car at a parking lot in Austin. A lady was putting her groceries in there. She had a baby in a carriage, a crib deal, maybe a little, car seat, and she was distracted with that. Well, she unloads her groceries in the back of that car, and she's tending the baby, and he jumps in her car with it already running and takes off in it, steals the car. He gets in a police chase. He gets in a 5-way intersection of some sort, big, major, crazy intersection in Austin, and has a wreck. He KOs with a tractor trailer semi-loaded with brand new Cadillacs, turned it over on its side. $200,000 damage to all them brand new Cadillacs. He was Charles Beaty on steroids, you know. The kid was gutsy as hell. He was wilder than hell being a victim of a divorced family, see? His mother neglected him, flew all over gallivanting all over on trips. Her husband won selling Jack Daniels whiskey, Hawaii, wherever, Europe. She went to Paris, whatever. Well, James Robert grew up a neglected boy. And so he was always crying out for attention. Every time she'd leave town, he'd get in trouble. Well, he had a steel pin in his femur as a result of the wreck, breaking his leg real bad.
Was the kid in the car, the baby?
No.
Oh,
No,
so
he left the mother and the baby in the carrier in the parking lot when he stole their car.
Oh,
and hauled
that's good
ass.
then.
Yeah. Yeah, that kid with the baby would have been killed if he'd have drove off with the baby, but he saw his moment of opportunity and then rushed out from the car next to it and stole the vehicle.
Yeah.
But,
So when God said to you, "He who lives by the sword dies by the sword," did that?
That confirmed to me that my son was involved in that shooting that he had the article from.
Right.
And I knew then.
Right.
I knew. I said, he took someone's life when he was much younger. And
as a parent, does that help you mourn him?
Absolutely. I was like, it's. And when the first thing God said to me when he said, "You're going to sit this one out," he said, "James is with me." I got him baptized and saved when I had him those 5 months. And he still went out and committed a robbery with a pistol to get in a gang. He was covered by the blood of Jesus, by baptism and all, but he still had issues. Mm-hmm. I had issues until I was, come down with this cancer. I'd gone back to drinking. I, was living it up again. Mm-hmm. I mean, once my divorce happened, I lost all my faith in God to do anything and correct my life. I said, I've lost my son for good. He was my only son now. Now I have no son. And I was living it up. Like I'm going to say in part 2. I wished I could say I just kept serving God and developed a different, stronger faith in spite of everything, but I didn't. I mean, I blew off, I got into happy and blew off sad. I got into deer and beer and women I'd never had. Mm-hmm. I just went back to, the normal way of living it up and breaking all the laws of God, and a lot of laws of man. But sin cancer is cured by one thing, skin cancer. There's other diseases that'll cure it. But when you got to make a choice between do you want to live or do you want to die? And you still got a life to live. You got years ahead of you, potentially, and you got things going on you want to do, get done in your life. In my case, the book. You have a wake-up call. I told God with blood running out of all those sores one day when I made the turning point, I said, I need a second chance. And he said, go and sin no more, lest the worst thing befalls you. He said, remember Lot's wife. She looked back and longed with lust in her heart for Sodom and Gomorrah, and God turned her into a pillar of salt. See, God, when he bails you out and you look back and want to get back in your sin, he's angry then, you know. And, 100%, I turned it around. I quit dipping, drinking, nothing. Now, I've had to use some whiskey during these, this is tough. When you put that black salve across your stomach, 10-inch circle, and it bites down into that cancer in your solar plex where all them tumors were, I'm going to tell you right now, the 15th time I did that, I cussed. I didn't cuss, just cussing. I screamed. I paced back and forth to the freezer all night, getting frozen gel packs, slapping another fresh one on that. It wasn't doing any good. That time, it had got into the roots of the cancer through my abdominal wall and got into my guts. See, this came from my intestinal walls and my small intestines. That's where it was rooted from. And so it had grown roots up through my abdomen and was in this solar plex area, serious. That's where your perspiration system's Grand Central Station. Well, I cussed all night. And after 8 hours, that pain finally lets up when that poison has killed all the cancer. It KO'd it, and the pain stopped. And he said, that's what people in hell do, Charlie. They blaspheme God all day and all night, 24/7. He said, that's all they can do. See, people in hell just scream GD over and over. Mm-hmm. That's all they can do to fight the pain. They're on fire. My whole body was on fire when that cancer lit me up all over after that one Epsom salt bath and I've told you about. I know how it feels to be in hell. I literally have experienced the fires of hell physically, and I've experienced them mentally too. I've seen them. I've seen what they do to people. I heard a lot of testimonies. They're accurate. On TikTok, you can't help but see testimony after testimony of people who died and went and saw hell. I'm afraid to ever get married again. One of the last ones that I heard, this is part of my testimony being divorced. Now, before I became accountable with knowledge brings accountability. I didn't know that once you're married, you're not supposed to ever get married again. The wife has no right to divorce her husband. It's clear in the Word of God. She's bound to the husband as long as he lives. And if she does depart, she has to remain unmarried or be reconciled with that husband. Okay? That closes the door on it with God. There are people in an area of hell, you may have seen this, who married and divorced several times, multiple times. Not only are they in hell, the preachers that told them it was okay to keep marrying. God wants you at peace. He wants you to be happy. Go ahead and get married again. But when you break that original marriage, you're committing adultery. Those women who had married many times were adulteresses, and the men who married, one of them had even been lied to. His wife, the woman he married, told him her husband was killed on the battlefield in war. She lied to him. He still went to hell for marrying her.
I thought you were forgiven for all your sins, though.
Let me tell you something. God said, I'm all about love and forgiveness in this life, but when you die, you have to give accountability to His holiness. There are some things. Marriage is a picture of Christ marrying the church. He takes that very sacred, very holy. He doesn't play around about it. I don't want to chance it and find out. I'm 69. You think I care if I'm ever with a woman again or not? All I want to do is finish off the cancer and go get a great hunting and fishing relationship and some time in with my son before I grow old and die. I couldn't care less about being with another woman. If that's what God does with me, I put it this way. Knowing what I heard in that testimony, I would have to have Jesus Christ appear to me and say, this one is okay for you to marry. Mm-hmm. I will let you marry this girl. I'll sanctify that. Because otherwise, I'm never going to pop the question. You know, I have a lot of fun joking like that with pretty girls.
Yeah, I see your Instagram all the time.
Yeah, I say stuff to them like, hello, this is Charles Robert Beaty. I'm just funning them, I'm just playing.
What if one of them takes you up on that now?
Yeah.
Some of them are pretty shiny.
None of them have called my bluff. They're all, they're all hoes, They're all trying to drag you over to some other place and ask you for money.
I want you to tell a story that you told before. It has nothing to do with hunting, but this is an amazing story. Tell the story about DFW.
Oh, you like that airport?
That just every time I fly out of Dallas Fort Worth, I'm not going to lie to you. I think about you before I take off or when I land. All the times I'm looking around and I'm thinking, there's no possible way. So tell the story.
Well, at my 20-year reunion, we had a round of golf over in a course in Grand Prairie, out off I-20, and I don't remember the crossroad, but it's in Grand Prairie there, South Grand Prairie. And so I left from there after the golf tournament. We'd already drank 3 or 4 or 5 beers apiece on the 18 holes, you know. So I'm kind of wound up. Well, I come to Park Row and 360, my old stomping grounds. I lived on Mitchell Street, the next major intersection, block back to the west, and off Carter and Mitchell. And that's my old stomping ground. See, Arlington, I graduated Sam Houston High. Well, gridlock, just stand still. Right there at the Park Row exit, from there all the way to GM and beyond, it was just deadlock, gridlock. I mean, somebody had a wreck or something, and it was just piled up, stopped. So I barely went on some of the median and cut off on the Park Row exit, went to a little bar I know in Arlington called the Why Not Club. I knew a bunch of people there. I'd got reacquainted with a lot of high school friends that were regulars there then after my divorce. They started buying me shots. I mean, this was a Friday evening, and they started buying me shots. And, you know, I bought them a lot of shots. They got me drunk. All of a sudden, I go, I got to go, boys. I got a reservation, a motel out there, Charlie's, remember that place on the north side at 635? It was called Charlie's. I believe that was the name of the motel.
Is it about the Harveys?
It was Harvey's.
Yeah,
okay.
I know exactly where you're talking about. Yes.
That's where our reunion was held, the dance on Saturday night,
It's a nice
the
place.
meet and greet Friday night. And so I was heading to the meet and greet. I go, I got to go to my room, sober up, and go to the meet and greet. See y'all later. Well, I had no business driving. I had this old Cadillac Coupe de Ville, and I made it to DFW Airport, got inside the airport. I mean, I'm drunk as Cooter Brown. I'm just trying to get through the airport, cut through to go to that motel where the reunion was going to be, meet and greet. I hit a curb. When I did, it jerked me over and hit the back tire and blew it too. I blew both tires on the right side. Well, some people saw me do it. They followed me, and they were calling me in. If they did have a phone or a radio, they might have been calling me in already, following me, telling them where I was going. They're trying to get me DWI and get me off the road. I just knew to get off the roadway, and I knew there was a gas station at the north exit. Remember that old Texaco that sat there? I went there, and I just wheeled right on around back, put it in park, pulled the keys, stuck them in my pocket. There was a payphone there behind it, and there was a Coke machine or two there. I started trying to call a friend to come help me get a tire on. I had one spare, but I had blown 2 tires. It wasn't going to do me any good to put one on, so I was just trying to get some help. Man, I got needing to pee real bad, so I started pissing by the Coke machine, and this old couple come around behind the Coke machine there in the building, and they saw me. I just turned my back to them, and they were going real slow, and so they were scoping out my vehicle and all too, telling them what to look for. Man, before I even got my pecker back in my pants, DFW cops show up. They PI'd me. They go, yeah, you're smart to lock it up. You did the right thing. We'd have DWI'd you, but we're going to have to PI you. So they take me to the airport police station. Right in about the middle of the airport, there's an overpass. I think all them planes taking off to the south go under it and then take off.
They go over it.
Over it?
Yeah, they go over
They
the car.
take off over it.
Yep.
Depending on the wind, they go in one way or the other and take off. Well, took me over that overpass to the police station. Well, I had a real good bearing on where I was. And in fact, in '88, a guy that worked the tables and the curtains and all the backdrops on the Dallas Safari Club in '88, they had, this was '94, they had a black bear trying to steal it, stole a mountain lion mount. And I knew right where the cop station was from then because I went and picked the mountain lion up there after they arrested the guy. Mm-hmm. We didn't go in and see him, but they had him in custody when me and the pharmacist went and got his mountain lion back at the police department. So I knew exactly where it was. But I thought I could walk to the north and go around the airport to the station. I couldn't. I got down to the end of it, and it was just all high fence. When I bonded out, and I walked up there and had these old golf cleats on. They were still cleat. So it was a cyclone fence 6 feet, but it was flimsy at the top. It didn't have a rail, a stay wire, or nothing. So I realized I could go over that. So I hit it right in the middle between posts on a dead run. I just about 1-2 stepped it and grabbed the top of the fence and just vaulted right over it. It kind of went down as I bared my weight on it, and I turned around backwards and just spirit it and went on over. So I remember what happened after hearing this podcast several times. The first plane taxiing to turn around and take off's one that saw me and turned me in. I took a knee. Here I am in this white shorts, red and white striped polo shirt that I had to buy at the golf country clubhouse to have a collared shirt for the. They wouldn't let you on that golf course. It was high end, and I went up there with a t-shirt, no collar. So I had bought the $70 polo shirt. I had on knee length white socks with white golf shoes, little brown lapel on the golf shoes. Well, I took a knee and let that plane taxi by me, and then turn around. And when he took off, I took off. And I started running from median to median and hitting the deck. I saw about the first median I crossed, I saw 2 trucks coming with spotlights from the center of the airport, security. They're flying up the runway on taxi lanes, And I hit the deck and let one go right by me, and the other one was shining his light the other way. I jumped up when he went by and ran behind him and got to the next median or two and hit the deck again, spread eagle down in it. There's a low for the runoff, see? Probably got drains, water drains, flood control. And I made it all the way across all 4 runways on that side of the airport and climbed that fence with them over there throwing lights everywhere looking for me. I beat them. I got over that fence and went to my car and put the one spare I had on and hobbled into Grapevine to the Goodyear. And it was 7 o'clock, a little before 7, when I showed up at Goodyear. I mean, they didn't let me out of jail at about 4:30. And a shift change had taken place. So if they had the whole story, they'd said, he's heading to the north exit, pick him up there. We just let him out of jail. But see, they didn't have 2 and 2 put together. So I'm sitting there waiting on Goodyear to open at 7. When they did, I bought a tire and put it on and had an appointment to meet my mother and my nephew, my dead brother's son in Arlington for breakfast that morning. That weekend was packed full of stuff. And I went and had breakfast with my mom and Robert Ray, and then made it on out to the motel.
What was your public intoxication ticket? How much did it cost you?
Well, I went to court. I had posted a bond of $120 or $125. I had about $900 on me for the reunion I was packing, And the judge said, "What'd you do, Mr. Beaty?" And I said, "Too much fun at a 20-year reunion." He goes, "I see." He goes, $40 fine.
That was the end of it.
Yeah. So I paid an additional $40 fine, plus the $120 bond to bond out. But
I don't know anybody that's ran across the airport like that. Another thing you couldn't get by with today because of all the thermals and the cameras.
Right. They would have had my ass now doing something like that.
When you were doing all your poaching on the King and the Kenedy and stuff, and you did more on the Kenedy than you did King, and the Kenedy Ranch people called me after the first time we had with you, and the guy told me, I thought, it's going to be an ass chewing. He told me, he said, I was pissed at first, and then I listened to it and I really enjoyed the stories. Mm-hmm. So, was there any game cameras at all back then?
No.
Was there any deer leases back in there? Was it all private?
In the Kenedy, nothing. Riskin Ranch in the middle of it was the only hunting going on the Kenedy Ranch outside of Outlaws.
And that guy was your buddy?
Yeah. I mean, we might as well have owned the whole ranch then. We'd drive 8 miles deep and go any direction we wanted from his property.
Does anybody own the Riskin? Does the Riskin still inside, or is it all part of the Kenedy?
Last December 1st through 4th, me and my son got invited to go and just be camp entertainment for some boys from Louisiana and all around the country. They showed up. There's about 8 or 9 men there, and my boy killed a little 7-point. But the 240 that Anthony and his brother-in-law trade turns every week, swapping out, selling hunts. The brother-in-law is married to his sister. Of course, she gets 50% of the income from selling hunts.
How many acres is there?
240 is all that's left. Anthony's grandpa, Bill, Jimbo's daddy. Jimbo's dead now. I got to meet Jimbo Riskin before. That's one hell of a story there, but that's all in part 2. But Bill Riskin, the grandpa of Anthony, he sold 80 acres, what he figured was his cut of the 310, to Leonard May, his father-in-law. Let's see, no. One of those May girls married. Leonard May was a brother-in-law. He married Leonard May's sister. Bill Riskin was married to Leonard May's sister, one of the May girls, out of Votman, right there by Lola Beach and all, King's Inn area. Well, that's why he was able to persuade him to sell him 80 acres. He wanted a homestead back there, and Leonard May was his hunting buddy his whole life. And, they used to go places outside the risking, and Leonard killed a 12-point monster, about 190, typical 12, with a nice 4 or 5 inch drop down on one side. And the story on that buck was Bill and him got drunk on whiskey one night, and they drove one of them railroads over there to that clearing where I saw the big deer all together, and spotlighted him right out of that clearing off one of them wellheads.
So there's 320 acres that's not part of the Kenedy in the middle of the Kenedy.
Well, there's 620 total. 80 acres belongs to Leonard May, 240 Anthony Riskin and his sister. The South 310 is still separate from it completely now because it was bought out. And here's what I heard about that. A guy calls me, and guess who it is? Brother Riskin. The one I told you went to prison. Found out he went to prison for drugs, not poaching. But they did catch him several times poaching. Well, I can't think of his first name. Jack Riskin calls himself Brother Riskin. Okay, well, he called me up and sent him free books, and he was going to come see him, and he did one night, but he thought he was at the wrong spot, turned around and went home. But he told me what's going on with the rest of the Riskin now. His sister, while he was in prison, talked to his mother when she was, out of her head with age, old. What do you call that when they get old?
Dementia.
Dementia set in, Alzheimer's. She got her to sign the whole property over to her, and she sold it for $7 million, the 310 south half. So it went to somebody. I don't know who. I don't know a name on it. But when Jack got out of prison, he was just screwed. It's gone. He lost it for life while he was in prison. They caught him pulling some meth out of there that I told you I thought I knew who the drug haulers were when I saw those blue backpack dope runners. They would go to the Riskin and then drive it out from there and go north.
So there's still a half a section that's in there.
Well, it's more than that. It's a short section still in total. But 310 on the south half, strangers have it.
Well, no, but they still own half a section.
The north 240 is Riskin Ranch still, northeast corner.
That's got to be worth a ton of money.
It's got to be worth $7 million.
Yeah, that's what you think too. I got to go pee. I got to pee.
Yeah, take a pee break.
Do you need to? You okay?
No, I'm good.
You're good. Rattlesnakes. I think we've talked about rattlesnakes.
You've asked that twice now, and I told you the truth both times. I've never saw one down there.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You said you never saw one, because Jeff had talked about how big they can get down there because it never gets that cold, so they never den up.
Those
so
blue
they can
indigo snakes and hogs keep them cleaned out, but they're in that high coastal clump grass out in the prairies. There's 9-footers in the Kenedy. I mean, I didn't go sleep in that shit,
Yeah.
But that coral snake I saw was every bit of 28 to 30 inches. I saw a huge coral snake.
What's the most amount of deer that you took on one time in there?
6.
6?
Yeah. 27-day hunt. I killed 6 bucks.
See, I would have figured you just shot more than on 27 days.
I'm pretty picky, Andy. I would kill what I estimated to be one out of every 150 to 200 bucks I see. So I was real selective. I never hurt that ranch. People that went with me saw how I hold off on 150, 155 bucks.
So you would only what was your class? What was your criteria?
If he was 165 or better and had heavy weight and pretty character, I was gonna kill him. That's what I was there for. I wasn't just going, as the years went by, I wasn't just going for one more 165 or 70 inch buck gross. I was still looking for that 230.
Yeah.
That like the kid killed. The kid killed a 230 double drop buck, foot long drops on both sides. That's the biggest buck any of us ever brought out of the Kenedy. And there's a funny story on that because they followed up with an arrest and filed charges, and they didn't have any evidence to make it stick, and the judge had to throw it out of court. The #1 game defense attorney in the state, John Killian, out of San Antonio, represented Dennis Music and his boy on that buck. And he knew the law. It's funny because they were leaving court. And the reason he beat them was because if it's a Boone and Crockett deer, you do not have to tell what ranch it came from, only the county. And so the attorney knew this. He knew the statute by number. And he called it out. And he said, according to statute, such and such number, so and so. If it's a Boone and Crockett, you don't have to say what ranch it come off of. They were filing on him because he said it was Kenedy County. They were saying it's the only ranch in Kenedy County is Kenedy Ranch. No, it's not. There's a lot of small places up near Rivera, just south of Salt Creek there, or Escondido Creek, I believe it is, that leads out into Baffin Bay. Well, the judge knew he was beat then, and he goes, well, case dismissed. And old Mike Plain just stomped his foot on the ground and stormed out of the courtroom. And when he did, the game wardens all went outside and calmed down and met with Dennis and all. And he said, he said, you boys, the attorney told him this. He said, you boys want to do your job. He said, I suggest you learn the law.
Wow.
He put it on their ass. That made them and then they said, well, Dennis, what we hate is, we pay big money to hunt our leases, and you come down here and hunt the Kenedy for free. And he goes, didn't I just pay big money on that time before when y'all filed on me and paid a $1,500 fine? That was the time they jumped him in the boat. No, that was the next year. Here's this rest of the story. The next year, they go over there, and Dennis took a friend of mine named Brett Goodson. Brett's dead now. It's good to honor Brett with this story. First time on a deer hunt, he went with me and Neil got hunting once, but he'd never been in there in the rut and deer hunting. It was late February when they went. They get chased down on the bay in a flat bottom boat. They saw it white capping coming behind them, run them down. Well, they threw the two heads overboard and, lost them. But they were at the dock, handcuffed, and Brett had a whole roll of film. We had restitution laws then. They were going to charge them a ridiculous amount of money for those $2 they had pictures of. Well, they chunked the heads, and when they're at the dock waiting for transport, Dennis goes, hey, Brett, what'd you do with that film? He goes, still in my fanny pack. They didn't get it. He goes, drop it in the bay. He reached back there and pulled it while he's handcuffed and pulled it out of his fanny pack. Bloop, dropped it in the Baffin Bay. It floated away, so they couldn't file restitution. But they paid $1,500 fines. That was the year before Dennis's boy killed the 230 double drop. So when that happens, I'm in on the 27-day hunt. I didn't know they killed the deer for a whole month till I come out. And Dennis, I get him on the phone finally when I come out. He goes, you hear about my boy's buck? I said, yeah. He said, what do you think about that? And I said, I ain't got but one thing to say. Here's what had happened when Dennis was caught with Brett. He had back problems, and he was handcuffed face down in the bottom of their boat when they apprehended him and drove him on into the dock. Well, Jason McFall, he was the rookie that tried to mouth off and say, we're going to throw the book at him on me. Well, he's matured some since then, I hear. But he stomped Dennis in the back and said, I said, get down, motherfucker. Well, he hurt Dennis's back. So when Dennis was on the phone with me a year later after his boy killed the big buck, I said, I ain't got but one thing to say. And he said, what's that? And I said, now who's in the bottom of the boat being stomped in the back? Because the game wardens had already heard all about it, and they were trying to make a case. And I mean, they were buzzing like a saw.
Where did that deer come from?
It was about 3 miles deep where they killed it.
The 230?
Yeah.
So everybody knew about this deer.
Oh, yeah. Before I got out, all of Texas knew about that
But they
deer.
couldn't prove it was poached.
I was the last man in the United States to hear about that deer.
but they didn't know it had been poached.
They knew it had been poached.
But I mean, they didn't have proof that it was poached.
What they had was someone ratted him out. A picture was submitted to the game wardens down in South Texas. Somebody talked, submitted a Polaroid picture, and told them they had seen it and took the picture, and they knew where it come from. That put the game wardens on them like stink on a dog's ass.
Whatever happened to that deer head?
A collector had bought it at one point when the pressure got on. They were trying to seize it during the court delay, waiting on court. Mike Fame went up to old John Stein's house in San Antonio. He heard he had bought it. Well, Dennis had sold it to him, but then when the heat got on, Stein had to sell it out of state to another collector. And when Mike Fame came to his house, he said, well, why I'm here having you measure my book, dear. He'd killed a book 197 or so that year, typical. He said, I'm going to have that music buck. I'm going to have to take that. We're filing charges on it. And he said, I sold that deer. And he just stomped his foot on the porch again. He goes, that's going to really hurt my case. He was going to lie and say he had DNA match from bones in the pasture. Oh. He was going to break the law to make the law. That's why, commended Ronnie Brooks so much. Ronnie would no more done that than a man to man. Mm-hmm. He just said, we lost. They beat us on that one. He would not have bent the law and broke the law to make a case. Ronnie wouldn't have done that. Every outlaw in Texas had the utmost respect for Ronnie Brooks. Speaking of Ronnie Brooks, he pulled over Kearns and the whole 3 or 4 more men on the baseball team with him out here in Throckmorton throwing the light one night. And he knew who all of them were. He goes, Jim? He said, I don't want to see that light come back on in this county. Yeah.
See, now back then you couldn't have a light in deer country.
You could not shine one where deer are known to roam. That was the law then.
And now with the pigs and stuff, if you're on private property, they don't really.
You're supposed to call them and tell them, I'm such and such, I'm on my lease, we're going to shine for hogs, and they're subject to come check you.
This thermal deal is getting out of hand for these people. Yeah. I feel sorry for the game wardens trying to do their job, because with these thermals, and guys are shooting shit all over the place with thermals.
Yeah. Well, there again, people, I should be a Catholic priest. These guys are calling me and confessing what they're doing. I'm not kidding. I feel just like a priest taking confessions out of everybody. I mean, I've heard some salty stuff, and it's like you said, they're using this thermal stuff, whacking and stacking.
I wonder what the biggest deer that's been poached in the last couple of years is.
Well, that guy won a contest in Oklahoma, but he killed the deer in Texas, and he called me bragging. I said, dude, I really would appreciate it if you guys didn't call me and tell me nothing. If y'all get caught, you're going to think I turned you in.
Right.
I said, I don't want nothing to do with knowing what y'all done, but they're proud.
What did he shoot?
He shot a buck in the high 160s.
And then put it in a contest?
It was a pretty neat story.
Do you remember the guy that put the buck in the Muy Grande that shot it in Canada?
I know that whole story.
Tell that story.
Robert Rogers told me the story. The originator and creator of the Big Rack book, he told me the whole story. He knew the guy that tried to pull it off. And what happened was, this guy was in the front running, always trying to win, always entering big bucks, and always suspected of doing it any way he could. He was under the microscope a long time. And so he started going to Mexico to try to kill the big buck down there, and then he was going to bring it back and say he shot it in Texas. Well, this deer was stolen out of a Manitoba taxidermy shop, monster massive, it's in the Hall of Shame trailer. And he gets wind of it, and he buys it, this guy that Robbie told me about. And he staged the buck. Somehow he went to Mexico and killed a deer and got a big Mexico cape to represent it in South Texas, and he come back and staged a bunch of pictures, all right? He put the horns in the fresh dead deer here, I think here. It was here in Texas when he planted the horns. And he smeared fresh blood all over the rack cover, just make it look authentic. Everything went over fine for a while. Robbie never bought it. He said, I never bought that guy's story. I knew him. He was an outlaw. He would have broke the law in a heartbeat. And he said, I knew he didn't get that deer legal here in Texas. He said, it didn't look like a Texas deer. It didn't look like a Mexico deer. It looked like something from up north. And he said, I was totally against him getting away with that. He said, I wasn't trying to help him get busted. I didn't know what had happened at the time. He publicized it so much, when the people up in Manitoba, Canada saw pictures of it through the grapevine, well, they said, that's the deer that was stolen out of the taxidermy up here. And here come the feds. Lacey Act got him bringing it across federal lines and state lines. Confiscate the deer, bust the hell out of him. I don't understand why the state of Texas has possession of it. I would have thought federal game wardens would have held that deer.
The federal game wardens don't have a wall of shame, though, like that. That's probably why.
They may have been gifted it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny because Dallas Ducks Unlimited invited us there, and I'm going to say it's probably around 95 or 96 when this happened. And at our table, it was me and Tony and a friend of ours from Wichita went with us, and Eli Haydell and his wife were sitting at the table with us. And I think it was maybe Gino Petrali and Jim Kern but were sitting at our table. I can't remember. I know Jim was there for sure. And I think it was Gino. It might have been Bobby. I don't know. It's a couple of Ranger players.
Whoever ran with him was probably the ones got pulled over out here by Ronnie.
Probably so. But anyways, we're sitting at that table, and that guy's at our table also. The guy that put this deer in the book,
yeah.
because he was all over the news. It was on Pictures. It was in the Dallas Morning News. I think Ray Sasser did an article on him. Bob Hood did an article on him, and he was this big celebrity. There's a guy that shot the Muy Grande, biggest deer in Texas, and they even stand up and clap for this fucker. And he's sitting from me to you while we're eating that night. And I talked to him the whole day.
He was a phony.
About 3 months later, he was all over the news again, but it wasn't for the same reasons.
Well, I'm fixing to burst your bubble. Bob Hood wrote my article of my arrest in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. All right? He's dead and gone now, I believe.
He's a good friend of ours.
Okay. Is he still living?
No, Bob died.
That's what I
Andy,
thought.
12 years ago, probably?
Well, even though he's not here to defend himself, I just found this out. Like I said, I keep getting calls and people telling me everything. Okay? Guy calls me the other day. I'm going to try to think of his name. His dad owned 8,000 acres down there in the Big Buck country in Dimmitt County, western Dimmitt County. I don't know why I can't think of it. I'd heard of the ranch before. It'll come to me in a minute. I could pull up my phone. I've got my phone out in the car.
Some of that Briscoe property?
Well, over towards it. All right. Well, he was a big outlaw as well. See, he could take them to his place from road shooting them right there nearby and tag them and say he killed them on that ranch. A guy that swindled his dad out of it really turned him sour, turned him south, you know. And so that's when he really started outlawing.
You looking for that deer?
Yeah. But because he had...
just look up Muy Grande fraud case.
Yeah, because
What
he
year
had,
was it?
95, 94, 96, somewhere in there.
Because this guy had that ranch and had invited Bob Hood, I think his dad knew him too, he'd brought him down there. Well, driving down the road on 133 there, where I nearly got killed in a pickup when we took it up on the side, you know, to keep from hitting a hog. That area in there is the Chaparral Wildlife Management, and then up and down 2 roads nearby there is just huge bucks that are seen off the road all the time. And one hilltop in particular they seem to hang around. He's got Bob Hood with him. I can't think of this guy's name, or I'd tell it. It'll come to me in a minute. But he's got Bob Hood with him. They pull up on this huge buck. He said the deer was well over 200 inches, typical monster buck with a doe point blank 30 yards off the fence on a T, a cross fence. He's in the fire lane. He shoots at him with a .223 and knocks the deer down. Bob Hood shot him. Bob Hood shot off the freaking road there with this guy in the truck with him. And he said he got up and went off. He said where we screwed up was we should have got out with the gun right then and went after him. But he said, he'll die. Let's leave him alone, let him die, and go back and get him later. Let's get out of here. They went back and never found the deer. But he said he was shaking so bad, there's no telling where he hit him when he knocked him down. And that's why he got away. He didn't make a good shot on him. But that's your Bob. He spoke down about me real bad in my arrest and all. And yet here he was shooting off the road, Mr. Sports Writer. There ain't no line drawn in the sand over who'll poach a trophy buck or not.
Bob was a good friend
Tiller.
of mine.
Tiller. D. Tiller is the name of the man and that told me the story, and I can get him on the phone. You ought to have him on a podcast telling how his dad got swindled out of the land. 8,000 acres over in Dimmitt County.
Well,
D. Tiller.
Bob is a good friend of ours. I didn't know, but never knew Bob to break a law.
There you go.
But I'm not saying that he never done anything, but the Bob I knew never done anything wrong. And one of his good friends will be here tonight. I'll ask him about it.
Yeah, D. Tiller told me, he said, that buck was so big a game warden would have shot him off the road.
Did you find the article? I'll look it up. It was the Muy Grande. It was a fraud case. The guy was all over the news.
Oh, I know the deer you're talking about. It's at the trophy hunter in that wagon every year.
Do you know what the guy's name was? I might be able to find it.
I couldn't call it if my life depended on it. I don't hear from Robert Rogers anymore. I don't know if he's alive.
Right.
He could have passed away by now. But 6-7 years ago, he called me and told me that whole story. And he just quit having anything to do with me. I would call and leave a message. He wouldn't call me back anymore. He was told anybody that helps Beaty promote his book is out.
Right.
You know?
So how much would a deer like that sell for?
Shoot. That deer was probably a 30 grand plus deer.
Really?
This damn time. Now, this was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And he killed another one big like that and sold it to some lion deer hunters at a store somewhere nearby in Catula. You know, he went into Catula with this huge buck, and he said, I was broke that year, and I needed some money, and I thought about just selling it, and I think they emptied their pockets. There was 4 or 5 men in the restaurant there and come out and saw it, man. He said, would you sell him? He goes, you know, that's what I was thinking. I need to sell this deer, and they pulled their money, and I think it was over 5,000 cash they were able to pile up there. And he said, we know this is not enough money for that buck. And he goes, no, you're right, it's not. This is a lot bigger buck than that. But he said, I need the money right now. And he sold it, and with all bragging rights. But, you know, while I'm on the subject, I got a confession to make, what's coming in part 2. I wanted to tell this story. I'm not going to say the guy's name yet. I think I'll put it in part 2. But I knew a pharmacist that I did a lot of work for, and I brought a buck out one time when he wanted to do that. He wanted to lie and say he won the contest, and he did. There's another contest winner for the Kenedy Ranch. He actually won the Burkett Trophy Game Records of the Year that year with this buck that I brought out. All right? I had found a shed horn, and I went back 2 weeks later hunting that deer. I've got friends that say that was my single top greatest hunt ever, to find a shed 10, 11 miles off the highway and go back 2 weeks later and bring that deer out, that exact deer, the shed to prove it.
Yeah.
He said, that's the greatest thing you've ever done as a whitetail deer hunter, is to go back and get that buck. Well, there's more to the story. We take the rack, and I had some fresh capes frozen down in Bishop at a friend of mine's freezer. I left one down there, and I said, bust that cape to me. The people at the show, the contest he's entered it in, are balking. His wife sent him a picture of a little dink, and they're not seeing a 178-inch rack there. He said, we're going to have to take a picture with a fresh cape, make it on a mannequin, and make it look like a fresh kill. So we did it. I mean, it's August. They're fixing to have their banquet. They're fixing to, you know, qualify him or disqualify him. And he just told him, oh, my wife sent the wrong picture. I'll send you a picture. So what's funny is they should have known that a flash photograph would glare the real eyes of a deer just like spotlighting them. There's no glare on them glass eyes that I put in the mount. I modeled it up with clay, slipped that raw skin over, left the nose just blocked out, a real nose on it. When this friend of mine sent it to me on a bus overnight. And we're out there. He's got a toboggan on his head, 102 or 3 degree day. Got blue sky behind it.
Oh,
I get real close.
Yeah.
Take the picture with the blue sky behind it, no body on the deer. Okay, we see that's the buck. That score is 178. That's what it measured and netted. Okay, it wasn't booked, but it grossed that. Well, he wins the contest. All right. Now, that's one of the deer that I want back, you know, from where it's at now. He's passed away 2 years. He's been dead 2 years now. Here's the rest of the story. This is the Paul Harvey version of it. I looked for that deer the whole first day. No sign of him. Rattled every mott. Lone motts were scattered across where the big prairie settled in. And I'm in a big old inlet in the shape of the live oak. And that whole circular mile area, I hunted that hard that first day looking for him to kill him. I give up. I said, I'm going to go back to that mott where I found that shed, and I'm going to find the other shed maybe. I'm going to waste my time. And I've gotten there. I'm going to find the match to the shed. And as I start up that rise towards that mott, I could just see into that live oak mott, and buzzards started pouring out of there. Just pouring out of there. And so, well, back up a notch, when I came out with it, my buddy said, how'd you kill him? And I was rattling him up. And I said, he never knew I was there. I just walked up on him. And I stuck to my story for 8 months. Well, I told one good friend of mine, and I said, you tell anybody, I'll kill you. You know, I sold the bragging rights. Well, he couldn't wait no time. He called another real close friend, told him, and so real quick I go, this is going to get back to the guy that bought the bragging rights, and he put him in trouble. So I killed the story. I said, you guys better keep it quiet because you're going to get him in trouble. He's entered in that contest and won it. Well, now that I want it back, you know, I'm going to tell all. Like I said in my flyer, Charlie Beaty tells all. Well, that's coming in part 2. Well, he told me, he said, no matter what, don't you ever tell my wife what I gave you for the bragging rights. And I said, your secret is safe with me. And so here's the funniest part of all. He died 2 years ago. I let him go to his grave thinking I killed that deer. I found it laying dead. Buzzards had, you know, been all over it when I walked up on it.
Right.
300 buzzards came out from under that live oak mott, and I said, could it be that deer? And I walked up in there. There he was, about 3 days dead. He died since I had been out of there after finding his shed. And he's laying in that big old rack, 14-inch back tine sticking up out of the grass. He was turned inside out up over the neck, ribs and backbones, all that's left. And I thought, he probably just died in a fight, natural causes, because it was 11 miles off the highway. And no other poacher would have even been back there to put a bullet in him and shoot him up and lose him. But that was his, and it was also his home turf mite. They wouldn't have lost him there. If they rattled him up there in that mite close to where I found that shed, they'd have found that deer. So see, it was not an outlaw kill. There was no bullet holes, but the cows and hogs had worked the ribs over real bad. I didn't have much to go by. But he'd been dead about 2.5, 3 days, starting to get stinky. And, you know, like I say, the joke is on everybody that believed the lie. Now that he's dead, the joke's on him because I let him go to his grave thinking I killed it.
When you would walk off of the road that goes to Raymondsville to Kingsville, and you'd go west, or I don't know, would it be south, I guess, towards the Gulf?
No, east. I mean, go due east out off 77 South.
And that would take you to the Gulf, right?
Yeah.
How far is that by miles?
18 to 22 miles. There's an inlet over there in the middle of the Kenedy County, and it's about 18 to that water line, and there's islands and shallows all out through it. But to the Kennedy Point, it's a full 22 miles from 77.
Can you hunt any of them islands or them state property?
You can hunt them all. The problem is the game wardens will just file on you. I met and talked to some guys that airboat hunt and were filed on, and he said, we shot the nail guy and the deer legal on the area you're designated to do that on, the Padre Island and the islands near it, not the Kennedy shore. And they flew a helicopter down through there and found some other gut pile someone else had poached and filed on them. But I think they pled guilty to a lesser charge that got them out under a felony. But, you know, there's still people down there airboat hunting those islands. It's legal.
That's what I figured it was.
You know, you didn't really lie. You said you walked right up on that deer.
I said he never knew I was
Never
there.
knew you were there.
That's exactly
So, I mean,
right.
really.
Man, Larry and my other buddy, Larry's dead now too. I wished he was still alive to see this all be told because he would get a big kick out of it. But I've got stories on him that I can tell now because he's dead. You know, I've outlived 3 or 4 guys that I can now go back and tell the worst things they did. George Moore's one of them. George Moore had his truck repossessed once. And I love to tell this story because I knew the banker there, Milton Kimball, and when he went in to say, look, I got reemployed, I got a new job after losing the last one, he said, I'll have my payments caught up in 1 month, the first paycheck, I'll come over here and catch my payments up. It's 3 behind. He said, well, where's the truck now, buddy? He goes, I'm up here in it. I'm going to get caught up. He said, well, excuse me a minute, I got to go talk to a guy. He goes back there and tells the repo man, go around and get the truck. And so he comes back and said, well, I had to take the truck, George. And he goes, well, you son of a bitch. He said, damn it, Milton, I've been banking here a long time, and you know every time I've lost employment, I get on my feet, I pay off. He goes, well, buddy, I had to hold the truck until you get it current. It'll be on the lot over here a block away. Well, George always had a set of keys, extra keys. He went over there that night and stole it. He just climbed the fence, got in there and cranked it up, drove it through the chain, you know, around the gates, busted the gates wide open and had buddies lined up to help him. They followed him up to Lake Mathis. He idled it up with a screwdriver real high idle, you know, with it in park. And 4-wheel drive, big, badass Ford truck. They stripped it, stole the seats and shit out of there. He said, I tied a rope around the steering wheel on the one passenger side mirror, the driver's side mirror. And he said, dropped it down in low lock. He said, when I threw it down in drive and we took off and looked back, he said, you could see the tail lights going into Lake Mathis.
So the truck's still in the bottom of that
truck's
thing.
in Lake Mathis now. But George did a lot of crazy shit, you know. I've told some more of it on another podcast, but, you know, criminal stuff. And that's just one of them. The night before I met him, I don't think I may have put this in part 1. I might not have because of his criminal liability. Man, he was spotlighting on the Lorella's fence line on the Chapman Ranch. There's a mud road over there full of mud holes, and you can get stuck if it's had a recent rain, that old black gumbo there. He stuck his old Chevelle over there. Well, he just took his gun, his spotlight, and walked, and there was an Exxon lot with vehicles in it there. Chapman Road was 70 squares on the first turn and goes back towards Corpus. He knew that was there. He worked for Exxon, knew all the shit about them. He climbs the fence there, gets his gun and rifle in the vehicle. The keys are all in those trucks. He cranks up one of them Exxon trucks. This is 2 nights before I met him in 79. He drives back roads. He busts that gate, drove through that gate. I think there was a guard there, and he woke him up busting that gate, so they were onto him stealing the truck right away. He runs about the first 15, 20 miles to Driscoll and then heads out through Ogadulce and back around on the behind Celanese plant on the Armstrong Road. Well, you know George by now. He couldn't resist. He plugged the cigarette lighter in on the spotlight and starts shining Armstrong on the way in. Game wardens had Chamberlain Division staked out, and they pull him over, spotlighting, and they bust him in possession of a stolen Exxon vehicle. I mean, that's what he did 2 nights before I met him. And Hibbler invited me to go. He goes, take old buddy down there to the Kenedy and show him around. He's been hunting down there shallow. He don't know his way around. Take me. The very first time I took George, he killed the scarecrow. 177, 28-inch spread on the handlebars, 2 handlebars on one side, 1 on the other, double eye guard, 16 points, long 26.5-inch sled runner rocking chair beam, beautiful deer, red-orange color on the horns. You know, that's the telltale mark of the Kenedy. Maroon to red-orange, those bucks have color in their rack. You know, West deer, they're chocolate horn. But that's why Robert Rogers knew that phony bastard's deer was not from Mexico even. It was not where he said he killed it. I mean, it looked northern from the get-go.
I couldn't find that article on the internet anywhere.
I mean, it's got northern mass anyway. It's got this big old blockbuster mass through the whole rack.
It's what, Andy?
I'm sure they scrubbed it, or I don't know.
I don't understand why it's not there. It was big news.
Or maybe it was before the internet. And
well, a lot of people delete, the game wardens delete after 7 years.
So how much did you sell that one deer for that you found?
Milton told me, he said, don't you ever let my wife. I said, your secret's safe.
So we gotta wait for her to pass
you gotta wait till I get that head back for you. After I get it back, I might tell how much, but no, not right now.
So how does that work? Did you just have like a
the bragging rights were very expensive. I'll put it that way.
But did you just have a group of guys that you knew that you could sell the bragging rights to?
No.
Or how does that work?
I didn't even come up with that. He said, let me put you in the woods, get me one to, I said, well, I was about through for the season, but I did find this big shed. I showed him the shed, and he said, well, if there's any way you could go locate that one, that would be a winner. That'd be a contest winner. Mm-hmm. And he said, that'd be worth some money. He told me this. He goes, $10,000 for a buck. Well, it didn't net book, so he didn't give me 10.
Right.
He didn't miss it much.
Now, the one that the kid shot the 230, and then he sold that.
No, his dad.
His dad sold it.
Yeah, music, let himself get broke, got in a bind, come up with a big cockamamie idea how to get a business running, and he wanted the operating capital, and he let, John Stein talk him into buying it from him.
What do you think that
How
deer
much
went
do you
for?
think that went for?
Well, right now, that's a $30,000+ deer. That deer was the second largest free-range buck killed in the state of Texas in 80 years when he shot it. That's how high-ranking it was. Second largest buck killed in the past 80 years when he killed it.
See, with the high fence ranches now, those horns aren't worth as much because there's so many people. These deer
You
farms.
can get a $5,000 hunt on a buck that's $300 now, $250, $275.
Yeah, but a free ranging buck at 230. What's the state record then? If it was
the King Ranch deer a few years later topped it. Okay, the 240 that Foreman had a pasture lease to do his friend and him's hunting on. And last day or two of season, he shot one. King Ranch bought it from him. They made a duplicate. I've got a picture of it. I got a picture. You want to see it? It's in that album.
240?
Yeah. 4.5-year-old weight field rest 105 pounds. 240 inches.
Fuckers had a bad back and neck.
He's the most beautiful double drop deer you've ever seen.
He weighed how much?
He weighed 105 pounds field rest.
So he weighed 150 max.
Last
probably.
day or two of season, he was completely rutted out.
Yeah.
Didn't have any fat on him, in him at all, none.
But still, that's not a big deer for that kind of head.
That deer would have field rest 140 during the rut with some weight on him. But late season, he was starved down, whooped down, been carrying that rack around chasing does. He was, everything run out the end of his wiener. By then he was done.
A 240-inch deer in Texas, though, especially down there, some smaller deer, compared to shooting a 240 buck an eye was a lot different.
See, that's why my deer are such trophies. A game warden mouthed off down there and told a friend of mine, Heath Hendricks, he said, I've never seen any deer Charlie killed that were really that big. And he said, those are all free-range bucks. None of that's before. All his heads were killed back before high fence deer even started. I mean, over there on the coast, that has still not gone on. There's still not high fence breeding over there on the Kenedy and the King. That's all, some of the last free-range deer available. You know, you got to pay top money and wait 2 to 3 years to get on the list. And
Well, to shoot a 200 class free range deer is amazing wherever you're at, but they're harder and harder to find.
Well, let me tell you what I think's harder: a typical book deer, and that's why they pay the big money for them. Out of all those years I was in the shop there, 7 years in the Hibbler shop in Kingsville, we saw one buck go in the book that was over 170 out of 6 that made the book. 5 were non-typicals out of the Brush West and one up at the O'Connor Ranch at Refugio, one out of Mexico. But that shows you how hard it is to get in typical. One buck went in the book out of 6 that made it that year. He mounts 1,000 a year. So out of 1,000 bucks harvested back in the good days when they were all free range, low fence, 1 in 7,000 made. We would measure 200 through the year. As Hibbler and his boy would mount them bucks all up, we would say, that might make it. Let's run a tape on him real quick, and we'd throw down on it. 200 of the 1,000 would go between 168 and 169 and 7/8, but would not make the book.
Wow.
That shows you how they've got the mark drawn at the right point.
Oh, right.
170 is the magic number. Mm-hmm. I don't know how it works for sheep, but they've set it at 170 for doll and stone, and, you know, that's the minimum entry. But back in the old days, Boone and Crockett recognized a 155 typical net as a book deer. Boone and Crockett's minimum used to be 155. But they must have done some science like I did working there 7 years and saw the line should be drawn at 170 because that's the ultimate mark. You bust that with a typical net, that's a Boone and Crockett.
What is mule deer?
195, I believe. It's up there.
You know, I just got back from Montana and I saw 1,000 deer probably. I didn't see one shooter buck. Not one. Nowhere.
I saw some of them maud dickers come in, Hibblers, that they went up in Colorado and killed back in the, 79 to 80, 83, 84, 240s.
See, I didn't see anything. But I mean, I was at places, even at Yellowstone.
It used to be common, they said, to go up there and shoot those giant mule deer bucks.
I didn't see any anywhere, and I'm sure there's a lot of them still, but I just didn't see any. Like if you drive around here, I saw a nice buck coming out here this morning. You see some nice deer, and you'll see We had 3 or 4 shooters I seen all the time last year.
I almost hit one coming out of Stanford this morning.
But you just don't. You did, but I did not see nothing out west that was a shooter. I saw tons and tons of mule deer and didn't see one shooter, but not even one that I would have thought, boy, that'd be a nice, even 150-inch one.
I've been approached by the previous record desert mule deer for Texas. Ralph, and I can't think of his last name. The other day I couldn't come up with it. I can find it out. He kills a 265, 266 or something. Shot him legal. He would track them in the sand for miles in the desert out there, Van Horn. And he's been beat since then by a buck that topped him by 7 or 8 inches. But you ought to have him come up and hear him tell this. It's a long story. They had one opportunity. He said, when we would jump a buck out there, we had to be on our toes for miles tracking. And he said, when it would get up, we would have a pause when it would look back and take a look at us. Had to get your shot off real quick. He said, I'd always wanted a non-typical. This is a hairy monster. It's the most beautiful non-typical. It's symmetrical. It's identical match on both sides, but just a woolly beast. And it's from Van Horn area, Texas. You ought to put Ralph on. He's 76 now. Someone ought to put him on a podcast and bring the deer and let them see it. It was #1 in Texas for years, Boone and Crockett.
It's amazing the way those guys stalk those mule deer.
Yep.
You can't do that on a whitetail. I'm sure you probably can, but it's just a different environment. But when you watch those guys get right up on those, they walk within 10 yards with a bow, with the winds just right and stuff. It's amazing.
Yep.
Are they not as smart as a whitetail?
I don't know if they're as smart or it's windier where they're at, and so you got an advantage if you can get downwind of them.
Because we have a guy that hunts with or works for us, and they have mule deer in his area, and I mean, same like Jeff saying, got the wind right and walked up to it 10 yards, and he kind of got fucked because the wind switched and blew a scent to him. But I mean, he walked right up on the mule deer.
I'll tell you a funny one. I got to hunt mule deer up there in Oldham County, north of Amarillo, about an hour. And there was a Boy Scout ranch up there that this prison guard, friend of mine, Ben Curtis, buddy, close friend. We're still buds. We fish every year together. He never hunted till he was 41. Then he immediately started getting into bow hunting. He's killed some big old salty mule deer bucks up there in Oldham County. That's one of the top counties for big desert mule deer in Texas. Well, he wanted to start bow hunting. I went up there one summer, hung with him a while, had my longbow, started shooting 3D, whooping ass on all them boys up there. And they were saying, "Who is this motherfucker come up here from Fort Worth whooping our ass?" They were betting money on me. The archery range owner did and all, gun archery shop. And I was trying to tell Ben how dangerous archery is. I said, "Man, you can get killed. You can get stabbed if you're not careful. Bow hunting is very dangerous, especially when you're excited after a kill." So we're hunting that panhandle least legal for whitetail. First hunt, he bow kills this little 4-point. Shoots him with a big old vortex head and cuts a 4-inch gash all the way through him under the underloins and gets the artery to the back legs, and found him in no time. I go over there to help him drag it up. They're pretty big-bodied deer in the panhandle. And I said, "Now, this is one of those times when you got to be real careful, Ben. You're excited, you're nervous, you're amped up. This is when injuries occur." So I said, "Fold that broadhead back up and run that rubber band back down on that vortex and put it up. You could get cut on it being careless." Well, he's got it in his hand. We left the bow at the Jeep by then.
This hurts me already just hearing the story.
And so he's I got one horn, he's got the other, and we're dragging that buck and heaves, and he's heaving each time. And he swings that arrow around and pokes me in the eye with the knock. Not the broadhead, but the knock. I was lucky it wasn't the broadhead. He didn't put an eye out. And he just gouged the shit out of my eye, and it just blood, filled with blood, and tears were squirting out of my eye. And I said, "Ben, with one eye, I said, this is what I'm talking about." "Oh, I'm sorry, Daddy Love." He calls me Daddy Love. I call him Daddy Love, man. He's got pocket full of digits is his other name. Chicks just throw their phone numbers at him when he goes out. And they named him that up at the bar from coming home from the bar with a pocket full of digits. Them girls give their numbers to him all the time. Well, he used to cut hair for women. I mean, he was like the movie Shampoo done over again. He was, what was that actor? I don't remember now. But anyway, we get to this little beat-up barbed wire cross fence from where his stand was, and we were going to throw him over to where we could put him in the Jeep. Well, I said, just be careful. So he had pitched that broadhead over a fence post down. I was looking at the post to see which one looked like the wire might support me to go over. I didn't see what I liked this way, and when I turned my back, he pitched that over to the next post. Well, it landed in that high grass with the broadhead sticking up this time. And I stepped down off that post after we'd thrown the deer on over, and he goes, "Daddy Love, look out!" And I stepped down on that broadhead, and one blade of that vortex head opened up and buried my right leg right here below the knee. Yeah. Blood just running down my leg like a faucet. I could feel that hot blood running down my pant leg. I had to pull a boot loose and take a sock and make a tourniquet out of it and tie it on my leg. I said, "All right, we're going to have to get me into Clarendon and get to the hospital." I mean, I stuck a daggum artery, it was bleeding pretty good. My boot was full of blood. We go to Clarendon an hour away, and there's no hospital. They said, "You're going to have to take him to Amarillo." I said, "All right, stop at this convenience store. I've got the blood stopped. Go in there and get me 2 packets of Excedrin arthritis pain relief formula." And I said, "Get me a beer and come right out so I can down that and get some of the straw." And it was just boom, boom, boom. And so he goes in there and he comes back out and he says, "They don't have any beer here." And I said, "Well, then get me a coffee and put some ice in it so it'll cool down where I can swallow these pills." He goes in there and gets the coffee and forgets the ice. He comes back out there and sets the coffee cup on the dashboard, and I'm opening the packets of them Excedrin, and I put 4 of them in my hand. He's rolling back a little bit to pull out, and a car storms in the parking lot. He looks back and sees it and stomps the brakes. Here comes the coffee into my lap, scalds my dick and balls, and I said, "Oh, damn, Ben." I said, "What are you trying to do, kill me?" I had it. I mean, that was just like strike 3. Yeah. And we get to town and find out that this lab pup he'd just gotten given to him had broke out of the backyard and ran over, so it's kind of payback. He got sad about that, and he had to take it to a vet, and of course at the hospital they just looked at my leg and said, You didn't cut no artery. Just leave that stab wound alone, like I'd done before. I buried a knife in my left leg one time. Same deal. They wouldn't sew it. They let the blood clot pop out a week later, and then you heal up. Well, the vet told him, he said, we're going to have to put him down. It sounds like his spine's completely severed. It was like that far below on each side. He wasn't feeling no pain because, severed the spinal cord. And he goes, well, why did he give him that? We left the vet after he put him down. And he goes, why did he give him that shot of drugs for another $150? If he's going to kill him anyway. And I said, the Bible says, should a man have strong drink? Yes, when he is condemned to die. He started dying laughing. I started dying laughing. I mean, that was a close call. This was closer. I nearly cut the artery running a knife through my leg one time. I tried to knock that doctor out when they pulled my arms away to see if it would squirt. And I took 2 punches at that doctor in the ER. I caught the flesh of his chin, both swings, nearly knocked him out. I was trying to knock him out. He lied to me. When you get an artery cut, I had a friend in high school bleed to death in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Him and his brother got in a knife fight, buried it in the groin, and cut the femoral artery in half. And they put pressure on it, called the ambulance, and he stiffed out and died in less than 2 minutes.
What were you doing when you buried that knife in your leg?
I was flipping it from this position over my thumb to this position, and it dropped between my legs.
Oh.
Well, for years I mounted 8,000 quail, and I dropped that little stuffing wire that I stuffed cotton down their chest with. Had a bad habit, force of habit. I just slapped my legs together to catch that knife.
Right.
I did.
Right.
Dead level, went plumb through my left leg. At first, I didn't feel nothing. And I looked and saw the knife handle, and I went, oh, it's in my right leg or on the left leg, one. And I pulled my right leg back, and I said, well, it's in my left leg. And when I pulled that knife out of my leg, blood hit the wall about that far away. It just went and ran down the wall, and I just grabbed it with a death grip.
Yeah.
And 3 men carried me out of there like a chair into the car, and a buddy of mine drove me a little ER. And they couldn't talk me into letting go, and they were not strong enough to pull my arms off. Finally, he said, you can't leave till we see if the artery's cut or not. We got to know. Let go of it for a split second. If it squirts, you've cut the artery. He said, if not, you're okay. I let go, and a moment of hesitation was shock. I went, it's not squirting. So I was just like shocked to see that. I was expecting it to start squirting again. And there's 2 ER buddies jumped in and grabbed my arms and pulled them back. The surgeon jumped in there and squeezed it to try to make it start squirting, see if it would bleed bad or not. And I mean, I threw a left right at him and tapped the flesh of his chin both times as he jumped back. I mean, I would have knocked him out if I could. And he goes, you swung at me. And I said, you lied to me. He told me he wasn't going to do nothing to it. And he lied, jumped in there and squeezed it.
Yeah.
When a man's in fear of his life, don't mess with him. He'll kill you.
Yeah.
Never corner a coward. They'll kill you. My life was on the line. But, 4 or 5 days later, I sat down in the bathroom. Big old blood clot popped out.
Oh, it did?
Oh, yeah, it just squirted out of there like a cigar.
Good. Ugh. Yes.
But I missed that artery. At the knee, it begins to turn and go under your femur, behind the knee.
All your days of poaching and hanging out and spending the night, because I don't know if anybody's ever done poaching overnight. Most people try to shoot and get the hell out of here. You did all these days. Did you ever see anything really unusual when you were there? Something that you just couldn't figure out what the hell it was?
We talked about that plane crash when you asked me that before. I've got a friend, Ski Shazinski, lives in Houston now. He told me about finding that plane crash. I didn't know he'd done that. I'd never heard him tell that, but he had told me. He told me recently about it. It's been 2 years, I think, since he told me. He said, that's another thing.
Tell the story about the plane crash.
Well, they just found it with a seismograph crew cutting a path right into it. They cut a Sendero right into it and found the crash from the 50s. And I told Ski, I said, did you look inside the cabin? And he goes, no, I seen them skeletons in there, and I backed off. It scared me. He said,
you found the plane.
He did. I never did.
Okay.
He said live oak was growing up through the cab. It knocked the whole bottom of the cab out, and trees were growing up through it that had already been there. This matured and grew up through it.
So it was a plane in the 50s.
I said, did you get all the kilos of cocaine out of it? He goes, was there cocaine in that plane? He would have moved it all out of there. Like you asked me, would I have reported that or not? Yeah, as soon as I got all the cocaine and moved to the Devil's Den, I would have reported it.
So did you, back then there was drugs coming across, but
that
not
was
like
all that was. I'll bet money. Those men had either they were either money launderers or they'd made a purchase that was going to be brought back later, or I don't know. I could ask some questions to the guy that told me about it and see if there was really cocaine still in the vehicle, in the cab.
Do you think if it was if they were moving money that you could, because that's always a thing. Like you're out hunting and you find cartel $1 million or whatever. But with it being so old, do you think that you could spend that money then?
Sure.
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah,
Because I'd be scared.
I've got an old $100 bill, I think, on me right now.
Yeah, if it didn't.
But I would be scared to death. No, you seen the movie No Country for Old Men, where he finds the drug deal gone bad and he steals the money? Well, like that's fresh, so they're looking for it.
Yeah, but that's why they launder it. They shuffle them serial numbers around all over the place. I had a buddy that went to the pen for passing phony 20s.
Did he know they were phony?
Oh yeah, he's getting away with it for a long time.
See, that'd be my.
I thought I had an old one.
I'm always scared when they check my $100 bill at the grocery store. I'm like, fuck, I hope that ain't counterfeit. I hope I didn't get a counterfeit bill.
I ask that all the time. Has it happened? And I've had a few people say yes. Because what sucks is the person passing it usually
they take them.
Yes, they do. And the person that's passing them usually is not doing it on purpose. They've gotten change back. Now, could you imagine if someone gave you $100 bill?
Yeah, just like on a tip or something.
Yeah, and you take that 100 and you go there, they take your money from you. They keep it and they turn it into the Secret Service.
Well, they backtrack. They try to say, who'd you get it from?
Yeah.
Who'd they get it from? They try to find who got it. They want the plates. They don't want the guy passing it. They want the plates.
So I got to come up with another $100 bill if I ever have a counterfeit. I got to come up with another 100.
Unless you're printing it yourself. I think the hardest part to do on all that counterfeiting, because today's all time lasers and stuff, the way they can do stuff is the paper. I don't know where the dollar paper comes from that they do the dollar with, but I'm assuming it's got one supplier, and that's the only supplier in the whole world that's the paper's made out of.
Well, the whole time I was in Mexico City, they never pulled these markers out and marked them to test them to see if they were real or not. You pull out a real $100 bill in Mexico, they just think that's automatically good money. So I guess abroad like that would be a great place to pass phony notes.
What were you doing in Mexico City?
I lived down there 3.5 years.
Why?
That's coming in part 2. I hunted the jungle, Campeche.
Well, tell us, give us something. You got to give something. People can read your book anyways.
Yeah.
Give them a good story to want to buy your second book. Go ahead.
Mexico City.
Mexico City. Tell us the Mexico story.
The reason I was talked into going down there, Don Corley set up the deal between me and this dentist that was also a guide, booked jaguar and oscillated turkey hunts, brocket deer. That's how I knew about them. And they promised me desert bighorn ram in the desert, big giant mule deer, to go down there and work with this taxidermist also, dentist, and train him more and open a shop. And so, I was free to go after the divorce. I didn't have anything keeping me here. I left right after my son's death, my oldest son. So that was a change of venue. It was a new start. So I go down there, and it's a clean start on life. I had an opportunity to put what had gone on up here behind me.
The brown-breasted bed thrashers.
Yeah. And so I get over there in the Campeche jungle helping, Eduardo around camp, skinning the turkeys when the hunters would kill them. He booked hunts and sold hunts and got to bring Roy Thornton as my guest. He was on that last Hunter's Advantage podcast. And, we were both to get to kill oscillated turkey, brocket deer, jaguar, white-lipped peccary, whatever we could run across. And, I was wanting to kill a jaguar worse than anything, and Eduardo set me up, pulled a prank on me. I've got a shortcut about it. But Eduardo got me off to the side one night, and he goes, we think we found out where to send you for the jaguar. About 3-4 days into the hunt, he bullshitted me. He thought I was going to chicken out and come back and say, I found the jaguar, I need the rifle. And we had a triple barrel grilling, and it had 2 shotgun barrels with a rifle barrel, 35-25. Well, it was a $30,000 gun, but he used that with the hunters to let them shoot their brocket deer and stuff. Well, he tells me the next morning, he goes, I'm going to tell you what road to go to now for the jaguar. They've been hearing them mating over there. And he said, when you hear this sound, he said, go after them. That's the jaguar. They're mating right now during the rainy season. He said, you'll be able to sneak up on them. So I start going out through the jungle when I hear it. I'd already shot a spider monkey real high up. He was up there mocking me, and I shot him right through the rib cage. And he hid up in some vines. I looked up and seen Roy and the guide coming the other way, passing me, and I said, that guide didn't want nothing to do shooting that monkey. You weren't supposed to shoot him. So him and Roy went on, and I went on around the other way to pick up that road he told me to take. I wasn't out through there long, and I hear the sound. And man, I didn't hold up at all. I had 2 arrows left. That's all I had. I only took 3 out of camp. I had 2 arrows left after shooting the spider monkey. So I go after the jaguar.
You're going to shoot a jaguar with a bow and arrow.
I was going after him with nothing but the stick bow and 2 arrows. You know, you ought to see me shoot that stick bow back when I was strong. I put 5 arrows in a 1-inch circle with Ted Nugent caddying for me. I've got it on film at 30 yards in a crosswind. But anyway, I mean, I was death with that longbow. I mean, I felt sorry for the jaguar. But I got out there and several stalks, most intense spotting stalk hunting you can do. I mean, you're wired. You're full of adrenaline the whole time. It's like you just killed something the whole time. I mean, I'm wired, supercharged, and I finally see what looks like a black mountain lion-sized tail hanging down. I'm closer than I've been yet. They kept moving on me. About 7 or 8 times they'd move on me. And I'd stay on the trail. I kept hearing them, kept following them. I got a mile and a half or so out in the jungle and got close enough to make a shot. And when I got around one more tree to take the angle towards the rib cage, it started looking real funny to me. And I was looking at it going, something ain't right about that shape of that animal. And it backed down the limb a little, heard me make a step, I guess, and it looked at me. And it was a howler monkey. I had seen just before he looked at me, I could see this naked, pink set of saggy balls hanging down. And then he looked at me, and I knew immediately Eduardo pulled a trick on me.
You walked a long way for that son of a bitch, didn't
I
you?
couldn't find my way out.
Oh, shit.
So I go back
That's some
towards
thick
camp.
shit, too, boy.
I get lost. I come out on a logging road, and I'm walking that logging road for half a mile or so, and I come up on a set of tracks. And I said, this is probably one of our guides scouting out scouting by himself, because there's just one set of tracks. And I went around a sharp turn, and here's this backpack. You see that National Geographic where they've got those plastic white burlap sacks made into a backpack? They got a headband across the forehead to help support the weight. Okay.
Drug mules.
That's exactly what it was. And it had 2 big faison jungle pheasant in the pack, feet and tail sticking up, and 2-liter bottles
What
of
was it? What'd you call it?
faison pheasant, giant jungle pheasant.
I've never seen one of those before.
Beautiful bird. Bigger than the chachalaca, but big. They're bigger than a fighting cock. They're longer and all, but that size birds. And I stopped and I looked at it and I go, this is not one of our guides. I mean, I kind of got a cold chill because Eduardo told me, he warned us. He says, be careful, there's poachers out here. Well, I looked at that 2-liter bottle and it had slivers of blended almond in the water. I put it back down. I said, I've not seen that in camp. Nobody in our camp's got it. I said, I think I just walked up on a poacher. Right then, bow! This big shotgun blast goes out down below me. Steep ravine down in the woods. I said, oh, shit, that's what this is, poacher. He comes up out of there, and I'm going, he goes, compadre. Big old Malian Indian. He's got this brocket deer in his hand about the size of a German Shepherd pup, and he's carrying it up out there, and he's got this big old long barrel shotgun. It's probably a 32-inch barrel. It looked like a 10 gauge, and he's carrying them up out there, and I got to explaining to him with my best Spanish I had that I was lost. Don't intend this campamento. I didn't know where my camp was. He goes, sí. He goes, es muy peligroso en la selva en la noche. Dangerous in the jungle. Jaguar. And I said, sí, te entiendes. He said, vamos conmigo por pueblo. Go to town with me. I'll get you out. You got to vamos by noche. The jaguar will eat you, I said, sí, te entiendes. Well, I had one choice. It's noon. I had to go with him to town, 24 miles away. It was. I said, ¿cuántos kilometers? He said, 30 kilometers. That's 24 miles. It's to high noon. Well, we had 8 hours of daylight left to get 24 miles, to get out of the jungle.
That's huffing at 3 miles an hour.
That bastard was tough. I thought I was tough. That guy put me down, but I told him I was tango mucho hambre. I'm hungry. I got to eat. He goes, Trego, the carne and venado. I cut him open, got the underloins, reached up in there and cut the heart out. He built a fire while I'm butchering it. We stuck the heart and underloins on a stick, cooked them real quick, and ate them. I mean, boy, we got to go. So we took off, and he wore my young ass out. Turns out, I didn't know this at first. Eduardo didn't know this. He put it together later when the whole story come out. He was married to one of the women who was a sister of one of our guides in camp. We did not know that. We hit town at sundown. I'm about to give it up. I'm about to throw anchor. I hadn't had a thing to drink all day from noon on. Mm-hmm. I had no refreshments with me. He splashed water in his mouth one time from a bar ditch, and I was afraid to do that. I thought, yeah, it would have warned me about those amoeba and those stagnant water areas, and so I wouldn't touch it. And so his wife made me talk about, have I ever eaten anything rare? Here you go. His wife cooked the lungs. She fried up the lungs after she blended me 2 44-ounce cups of blended watermelon, 50-50 with water, and I just chugged them 2, bang, bang. And, man, that hit the spot. You know, started rehydrating me. I was dehydrated bad. I mean, I'm starting to cramp up and stuff. Well, I wanted to try those lungs. When I saw him frying them, I was like, I mean, he had left everything else in the deer, you know, and she cut them lungs out and right off the bat, started frying the lungs. Well, they fry up like chicharroni, crispy, crunchy, but delicious. I enjoyed eating them. And I said, I got to go, yummy boy, you know, so I'm out of there. And I
Did you know where you were going from there?
back up a little. I had shot at, I knew that town. It was the last town we went through. So, yes, I did have a bearing at that point. But I was 2 or 3 blocks from a military checkpoint. I had to stay back a couple blocks where they wouldn't see me. I went down below them and come out to the road, walked a mile south to town. But I had fired my second arrow at the female that came down the lot. Shot over the male monkey, and I just said, fuck him, I'm going to kill him. You know, I was mad that he'd want to pull a trick on me, and I didn't allow for the high flight on that first arrow at 50-degree incline. Shot over his back. She came down and looked at me. I shot under her. Didn't anchor when I pulled below her. I just let fly, but I kept moving and shot under her. So I have no arrows. I'm, without any. I thought it over when I wasn't to the poacher yet. I thought I can open my knife, take the string down, tie knots every round, and tie that knife to that end of the longbow around the eyelet for a spear to protect myself. I said, if I get left out here in the dark, I'm going to have that for a weapon. Mm-hmm. I'd already thought that over, like that movie The Edge where he speared the grizzly.
Yeah.
I was going to use it as a last defense. Well, I had planned when I got to town. I remembered there was a brand new bridge, concrete bridge, just been put in. Cut on both ends was about 5 inches. You know, they hadn't feathered it into the roadway yet. It was just concrete, brand new bridge. You had to stop to come up on it on both sides. I thought, this is perfect. I can sleep down under this bridge out of the rain, and when they come looking for me with the Jeeps, I'll hear it and wake up and recognize them. So I'm down there, and finally I hear a vehicle that sounded like a Jeep, and I got up and looked. It wasn't them. I tried waving them down, and they just hit it and ran. Went to the military checkpoint immediately and told them about 20 soldiers. They come back down there to me with it. I knew it was probably going to happen. Sure enough, here they came. I heard them hit the bridge, stop, go over it, go out past it, turn a U-turn, come back, put the big spotlight right on that corner of the bridge where I was. Gringo, vamos arriba, come out with your hands up, manos arriba. I come out with my hands up. Captain comes down and talks to me. There's 18 men in the bed of that bobtail army truck with automatic rifles on me. If I'd have made one wrong move next to that captain, they would have turned me into a hamburger. And I mean, I couldn't see past the light very well at all, but he said, what are you doing here? What's your story here? You got my ID? And I said, I'm hunting in the jungle with my associate out of Mexico, DF, and I got lost. He said, what are you hunting with? I said, not a rifle. I've got no firearm. I got a bow arco. He goes, let me see it. He goes, no fletches? I said, no. He goes, okay. He goes, go back under the bridge. When your friends come to get you, looking for you, we will tell them where you're at. I go back under the bridge and go back to sleep. About 5 in the morning, I hear, Charlie. They wake me up, and I come up out of the deal, and it's Lechuga, the chief guide. Looked like Charles Bronson. He's with 2 of the soldiers and 1 other guy. They get me in the back, and they're slapping me on the leg all the way to town. Charlie, man, they were glad to find me. They thought I was out in the jungle eaten by a jaguar. They take me to a restaurant, and the old senora fired up the grill and fried me chicken and salad with ranch dressing. I went from, lost and walking to town to eating like a king.
What was Mexico City like? That's a place I've never been.
Oh, that takes years to tell.
Really?
I'll tell you this. You know the difference between dog shit and human shit in Mexico City?
No.
There ain't one. There ain't even toilet paper marking the human turds.
I've seen it. It looks like a beautiful place.
I would love to see it, but
I think it's too dangerous now.
It's very dangerous.
I think it's too late. I think it's too late. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody.
I would love to go to the town square there.
A friend of mine was killed 2 weeks before I left.
Oh.
He had his son in his car at a gas pump, and the rateros, they call them, came and had a gun and jumped in the car and pushed him away. And he jumped on the windshield to try to stop them as they were trying to drive off with his boy in the car.
Yeah.
Shot him right through the windshield in the head and killed him.
What happened to the boy?
I don't know the rest of the story. Luis told me that, and I said, he said, Charlie, go home. Don't stay here any longer. Something could happen to you.
Yeah.
Eduardo had told me, he said, you go in them banks to cash your check. If you see them bringing in those big bricks of money on one shoulder and two with a shotgun and a fully auto AR, he said, leave.
Yeah.
Don't stay and cash your check. Go back later and cash your check. He said they have 1 to 4 bank robberies a day in Mexico City. They give the money to the guerrillas, all the guerrilla warfare down in Central America. And he said they kill everybody at the scene.
Right.
The shootout breaks out, and they usually get innocent bystanders. He said, don't hang around a robbery at all. If those guys are even bringing that money in or out, leave. Walk away. Go wait a while and go back and cash your check later. It's a very dangerous place. But I'll finish that story. I shot an ocellated turkey the next year, and when Eduardo picked me up at the Cancun airport, I was going to make him pay me for my equipment I'd left down there the next year. And I had brought a guest, Pat Latham, from the Dallas Safari Club, and then also...
I know Pat.
Yep. Pat Latham went hunting with me down there. He can tell you this is a true story. We leave the Cancun airport, headed for Chetumal down by Playa del Carmen, and we start down the coastline, and Eduardo says, so you're famous in your country now? I said, well, I guess a little bit after being arrested. Made all the newspapers and stuff, and he said, well, let me tell you something. He said, now you're famous in 2 countries. I said, Eduardo, what are you talking about? And he said, in this country, it is customary to name a new road, a new building, a new bridge after a current event. He said, I said, I said, get to the point, Eduardo. And he goes, Cabron, they named the fucking bridge after you. I said, what? He goes, yes, Puente del Gringo, the bridge of the white man. He said, the funny thing is, he said, everybody calls it that. He said, but only a few people know why.
Famous in 2 countries now.
And I went back that year with him. I took a backpack, one of my USMC big, large military backpacks, gave it to the poacher that got me to town.
Give him something else.
Because he had married one of the sisters to the camp guide. I was able to send it to him.
Right.
So you hung out in the mosquito-infested, jaguar-infested jungles of the Yucatan.
There's not a more fun hunt that I've ever went on anywhere than that. By myself, head up against a jaguar with 2 arrows, 2 sticks, and a string. I have never been more thrilled.
Did you ever kill a jaguar?
Nope. No, I didn't. And
Did you ever see any?
No. I'm
Very
glad
elusive.
I didn't kill one now, because it didn't work out between me and Eduardo. I couldn't get my earnest pay out of him. He was ripping me off. They say this about themselves down there. They say, when you give to the Mexican your hand, they take the whole arm. See, I just couldn't get him to be honest. He was giving me peanuts, and I was doing all the work, mounting up all this shit for all these biggies, and he was collecting all the money. And
I always feel that way down there. Mexican minute.
Yep.
That's fucking 3 hours sometimes.
Yeah.
They don't, if they'll look you right in the eye and they'll tell you something, and you know damn well they're lying to your
Well,
ass.
he'd come in and check out things and write me a check on Friday, and I wouldn't see him the rest of the week. You know, I don't know what he was doing. He said, I'm going to go sell another hunt to so-and-so. You know, he spoke pretty good English and all.
I love Mexico, and that's a hell of a story to go that you did just walking through the woods down there. Were you worried about snakes down there?
No, but Eduardo told me, you're lucky you didn't get bit by one of those bad ones under that bridge.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that was really stupid of me getting under that bridge. But the disturbance of it just being put in probably had them run off from it.
Yeah, it could be
It was
true.
a brand new bridge. There all kind of equipment going on there for a while to build that new bridge. So that probably is what had the snakes pushed back. If it would have been some old skanky bridge, that would have been nowhere to be.
What kind of snakes they have besides rattlesnakes down there?
I don't know. Eduardo called a name or two and it didn't stick. I didn't pay attention. But they've got deadly snakes in the jungle, no doubt.
Well, we went to Costa Rica last year, and we did like this nature trail thing to go see some famous waterfall. But we would walk right past 2 snakes, had no idea. We were coming out as a trail guide had a party with him, because I mean, you just walk the trail and you don't have to have anybody. But anyway, he was looking for monkeys up in the thing, but as we were walking by, he was like, "Hey, watch out! There's a poisonous snake right here."
Uh-huh.
We had walked past it.
What kind was it?
same as him. He said what it was, but it didn't
I'm
stick.
scared to death
But,
of
I mean, it
snakes.
was from on the path that we're walking. It's sitting at Jeff's foot. I mean, we had just walked
Was it a
right
big
past
one?
it. No, they're not very big. They're just coiled up, maybe
Well, I hate snakes though.
maybe that big. But
Sometimes
I mean,
those
whenever
small,
he points it out, like
they're
you
more
fucking
deadly.
see it.
They dump their whole load in you if they bite you. They don't
Yeah.
have control. An adult snake knows
Yeah.
how much venom it takes for a rabbit or a rat.
Yeah.
They don't just dump their whole load on a bite. A young snake, they just empty it in you.
Yeah,
I don't like any of them.
But just before that, my kids, they'd kind of run up in front of us and go hide around a tree and try to scare us as we're walking by. But I mean, fuck, we're lucky that, I mean, it's just 3 foot off the path where these snakes are. I mean, we're lucky one of the kids didn't, get it whenever they were
I
assing
went
around.
to a number of tourist attractions, I went to Tampico and guided a hunt on a game ranch there that we booked hunts on. And that was quite a thing to see that right near Lake Guerrero. And I wished I could have gone over and done some bass fishing while I was there,
Yeah.
because now I'll never go back.
Right.
But being there then, I would have, loved to have done some fishing while we were in that area.
What year was this that you were down there?
From about 94 to 96, something like that, 3.5 years.
Yeah.
I'd fly up here every summer for 4th of July party up at my buddy Roy's house and fly back and work and come the rut at flying. I was like old Bronson in that movie where he killed all the bad guys.
Yeah.
When I would fly over Laredo, I would be well into our descent. And we're getting pretty low, and you could just see the east horizon where the Kennedy is. And I'd look out that window. I'd always get a right side passenger seat window and passenger window seat, and I'd go, see you in a minute, in a few days. And I'd land at DFW, and me and Roy would saddle up, fill our packs, take off, drive down there, and hit the Kennedy.
Yeah.
So I went international outlaw then.
So you're working on your second book still. Any idea when you're thinking it's going to be ready?
I'm fixing to
it's-
shock everybody. I'm fixing to be out from under this beat down feeling. See, it's kept me down. The medicine, the poisons I'm taking, fucked me up.
Yeah.
But I've got to kill the rest of the cancer virus. I can't stop. Your immune system, too, it doesn't have a pause button. Once it gets the upper hand, it's not going to let you just leave it alone, take a break. Every day I have my coffee with a knife in my hand, scraping off these places that are still breaching and coming out of my scalp. Blood and sap running out of these little breaches back there, little spots. It's coming up out above my ear canal. At one time, that cancer advanced into my sinus membrane, dropped into my inner ear and into my spinal cord, into the spinal cord fluid. When it does that, it can kill you. It nearly got me when it got that bad. I knew I was in serious trouble. I went to an ER, and he told me, he goes, you've got what appears to be spinal meningitis. My ears were on fire red, and so what's coming out now is the rest of that virus in my spinal cord fluids, leaving out around joints, leaving out above my ears. I mean, it was real swollen up and burst and started draining. But this whole time, I'm either passed out or woke up feeling bad, or a day after a big treatment, I start to feel the upper hand on it, but my immune system is still hammering it, running to the surface. And that methylene blue, the fenbendazole, the ivermectin, all that's played a role. And like I say, at one time I was eating baking soda with backstrap molasses, and that creates organic peroxide, tricks the virus into eating the baking soda, kills it. It's like throwing a Alka-Seltzer to a seagull and having him swallow it, and then it just blows up and pops, But I tried everything everybody told me would work or could help at all. I've been all ears. I'm going to write a book about the cancer if I live long enough.
How long do you think till book 2's ready?
I know y'all are wanting a number.
Everybody has, but you
I know.
for 4 years now.
I
So
know.
you gotta,
I think I can completely pull it off in 3 to 4 more months.
have you ever thought about just getting a ghostwriter to come in and you tell the story
I
and
can't
them
do
write
that
it?
no more than I could let them do my audiobook. Everybody
Right.
tells me don't do an audiobook with someone else telling the story.
No, don't do that.
They say it'll run it.
Yeah.
No one has your voice and your style of telling it.
Yeah, I think that's very true.
I've got one real funny story I want to tell.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll go back to part 1 with this one. Taking a knife to a gunfight. Me and 2 high school buddies, BWs and Rusty. And Rusty's still alive. Bobby's dead now, but I want to tell one to honor my dead buddies, And this was one of the craziest ones because I was new at it and new to hit the Kennedy. And so I took them the week before I took old George Moore into the Kennedy. I had taken them on this hunt. And BW's, he was not a good shot, but we put him on under the gun first. And I rattled up what I know was a buck 170 10-point with long ropey eye guards and 10 full long points. And he was right there. You could spit on him on the other side of the coastal. He was looking out away from it, thinking he was somewhere over there in the woods. The buck had stopped right behind that coastal, and he was the coastal was sticking up around his face and all, but I could see the rack there, and all he had to shoot at was the head. I said, he's right there. Well, he finally saw him, and he was shooting left-handed because I was here and Rusty was there. And so he tries to shoot left-handed and shoots and misses him. He just hit his knee, shook his head from that muzzle blast, and got up and run off, not a drop of blood. Then we go a little further and rattle up this real pretty buck. He's in part 1, but he's got one unicorn point near the base and eye guard, but he's a 10-point buck. And he's walking across in the rattle, and he opens up. We had a 35 caliber Remington, 240 grain bullets, and semi-automatic. And BW, it's about 70, 80 yards. BW opens up on him, and it sounded like somebody letting loose a cannon in there, man. I mean, boom, boom, and limbs start falling down over the top of that deer's back. And I said, you're shooting over him. Pull down. He pulled down, but the buck moved, and he shot and blew his hip out, broke his back at the hip. I said, don't shoot anymore. I mean, I thought the troops were fixing to come swarm us after them 3 giant cannon blasts go off. So we run up there, and I said, don't shoot him again. I'm going to stab him, finish him off. So I stuck him what was about the heart and stuck him again in a minute, and then I stuck him again in a minute, and he was trying to get me each time, and I pushed the side of his rack and jumped back. Finally, I stabbed him. I went in with it this way, and then I took the time it takes to flip my hand on that Bowie knife and grabbed it this way and just raked it to kind of slash his lungs half in two. And when I did, that's all it took. That moment of hesitation's all it took for him to take aim and fire at me while I was close. And he did something different. He just threw his front legs out and slapped the ground and came straight back. Well, they can see out of the top of their head. It was as if he had sights on those points, and he'd aimed that tallest point right at my eyebrow. He stuck me right in the right eyebrow, and I just folded out cold, lights out, hit my knees. When I came to, I'm leaning against this mesquite tree I fell into, and I could hear blood going shh. And I saw it then as my eye began to clear, and I could see it was just running like a faucet. And BWs and Rusty were going, ha, 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 with sticks trying to get the buck off me. They said he turned around and was trying to finish me off. And so I looked and saw the knife on the ground, and when I saw the knife about halfway between me and the buck, I just ran and scooped it up and on a run and dove on the rack, grabbed the rack, mowed him over, and just stabbed him again and again. I'm just ripping him opening him up like a slinky, you know. And I mean, he's going, blood's blowing all over me out of his lungs, and I'm already a bloodbath from my eyebrow being cut, my eyes swelling shut, got about the size of a golf ball. And I looked up at them as he was dying off, riding to a stop, and I looked at them, and I mean, you can imagine what I looked like. They thought they were next, and they go, Charlie, it's okay, Charlie. I said, why didn't you shoot him again? They said, you told us not to shoot again.
That would have been my biggest fear, would have been waiting here to some guns. That's a good story to end this one on. Uh-huh. And when you get book 2, you're going to come back here first, and we're going to talk about it.
3, 4 more times. Okay. It'll take that to cover it. Jeff, I'm going to tell you stuff in part 2 that would knock you out of your chair right now.
I can't wait to hear it, and everybody else is the same way. We appreciate you being on here.
Great.
And God bless you, and hope the cancer goes all the way away.
I've got it whipped.
I know you do.
Good.
All right. Thank you, Charles. Thank y'all for listening to us. God bless y'all. Have a great week.
Have a great week, guys.
Thanks for having me again.
Thank you. Bye.